Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'd like to call the recess meeting for the Nash County Board of Commissioners back to order at this time. It is customary for this board to begin each one of our meetings with prayer by a sitting commissioner and also a pledge of allegiance. And during this time, you're welcome to stand and join us in the prayer. You're welcome to use it, the time for your own prayer, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, whichever you so choose. And at this time, I would call on Commissioner Leggett to have the prayer and Wayne Outlaw to do the pledge. And Ms. Leggett, if you would remember Ms. Wells in your prayer, I understand she is not going to be with us today and under the weather. Thank you, ma'am. We stand?
Dear Lord, today we are thankful for all of our blessings and for your great dominion. Lord, we ask for your forgiveness for falling short of your grace as we work to expand your kingdom. Lord, please be with us today as we conduct the business of Nash County. Please guide our hearts, our words, and our actions. Please be with Ms. Wells and put your healing hand on her if she's not feeling well today. All of these things we ask in your precious and holy name. Amen.
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 You want to send the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to follow the agenda that we have been given for us today. If you will note on the agenda, item 5, we did complete yesterday. So if you want to cross that out so you will help me remember not to go there when we get that far. I do apologize for my bright coat this morning. All of you know my wife does put my clothes on the end of the bed each morning for me to wear when I question it. She told me it was Easter week, and this is the week that I wore this coat, and so therefore I'm here this morning with the bright yellow coat on. But with that said, we will go right into item number 4, which is new position salary adjustment request, and I will call on Anson to lead us in this. If he is here, yes, he is. And it would be page 10, what did I tell you?
213.
213 in your booklet.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
15.
As you are aware, we have a number of requests for position changes to bring before you today for your consideration. Some are requesting reclassifications in order to restructure their departments so the departments can operate more efficiently and provide better service to the public. We have some requests to increase salaries in order to address some current internal inequities in pay. You'll hear from some departments requesting additional staff in order to better meet the demands of services from the public and so on. I did want to mention in his remarks yesterday, Mr. Lamb had requested that you consider perhaps a pay study within the next year or so, and I agree with that because we do experience some compression in pay. We're seeing that, as you'll hear from that this morning from some of the requests. And I know that the county has historically looked at pay studies within maybe the 4 to 6 year range, and the last pay study that we have on record was from 2014 to 2015. So I think to keep on track within the next year or two, it may be advisable to consider another pay study. But with that being said, in order to address some of the current needs that we have, we're going to have the department heads to come up at this time and bring their requests before you for their positions.
Mr. Lamb, I'm going to just call them in the order in which they're in the book. Is that what the plan is?
That would be great. We have a list. Stacy, do you have that list you had that you could, he's got it?
It's in the book.
Okay. I mean, the list you had on one page yesterday? Oh, okay, okay.
What page is it?
215.
No.
Table of
The agenda, it's the
content.
expanded agenda page.
Okay. Do I have it?
You do, but there, you have it.
I do have it. Huh? Well, no. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Keystone, it looks like you are first on the agenda. Whoever's making this presentation, sir? Okay, great. Good morning, Major.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
We
Good
are
morning, board.
good. Good to see you this morning.
Yes, sir. Good to see y'all. So we have a few things that we'd like to cover. The first thing that I'd like to look at is a pay study that we done internally, and a request that I'd like for the board to consider. When we started looking at some of the salaries, one thing that we noticed, we just had one employee that, with a year and a half on, making $42,000, just a little over $42,000, and we have another deputy who is seasoned, has a lot of experience, and he's on 14 years, and he's making $3,000 more a month than that particular deputy that just started with no experience. So the compression among the deputy rank is really tight when we look at that. So knowing that the deputies, they're having to work part-time jobs, they're having to do other things just to bring in extra money to help provide for their families. So we started looking around and saying, well, what is the best way to compare, right? And we all know that different counties have different economic values, right? We know that Wake County is a booming county, and you can't really compare to Wake County with the job opportunities and things that they have there. But Nash County borders on that, and a lot of houses and real estate values and all that in Nash County, it compares pretty equally to Wilson County, and it compares pretty equally to Pitt County. When you look at those values in Nash County and you compare real estate in Nash County compared to Halifax and Edgecombe, it's a significant difference, right? And that difference comes because people typically move where there's job opportunities, right, where tax rates are competitive, and where they have other amenities added to them. So with that, we wanted to compare and say, well, what is the job market? Because we all know that law enforcement, without a doubt, is extremely getting more and more difficult every day. Violence that we've seen, I mean, look, just a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, on the interstate, one of our officers, will he come back to work? I don't know. And the other officer had to be involved in a shooting. We just had an officer killed in a motor vehicle crash at Thanksgiving. So with that, we know that the dangers of law enforcement are real, and it becomes more and more when you look at the news and you can see that. So it's more and more challenging. One thing that we really want to try to do is we want to recruit the best people. And in order to recruit the best people, there's fewer people coming into law enforcement, is evidenced by BLET academies, is evidence from other agencies, people applying for it. So what you're doing, you're competing with other agencies in a competitive market, just as a business would, on how do you get the best candidates. And we really, ultimate goal is we want to provide the best service to the citizens of Nash County that we can. And the way we do that is we want to recruit people. We want to recruit the best people that we can recruit, bring them in, and then we want to give them a competitive salary so that the upfront expense that we put into them, we're able to keep them. And they don't come and stay a few years and then turn around and leave and go to a state or a federal agency, or just go across the county line a couple counties away, either way, where they can drive, because a lot of these people have relaxed their domicile rules, so they can drive, they can make more money. So we looked at Wilson County, and we looked at Pitt County, and we compared those two, and we also compared it with Rocky Mount, because we're competing with Rocky Mount as far as salaries go. So we looked at those things, and we decided, well, those are more likely to be our competitive market, right? If somebody comes out of BLET, whether it's in Wilson or whether it's in Nash, either one, they're going to look and say, well, where's the best place to go, right? And so with that being the case, we compared it to those agencies because the counties are very similar, right? No doubt, when you look at the housing market, the counties are very similar to things that they offer. And with that, we found that overall, from the sheriff all the way down, there was a big discrepancy in the average. So what we done is took their salaries, and then we found the average of that particular position, of a captain, of a lieutenant, of a major, of a deputy, of a sergeant, and we found the average salary of those particular agencies. So we didn't go high, didn't go low, we took the salaries that they were provided us, and we found an average on it. And then we just took the average of all those, right? So we didn't take just one particular agency, we done the average of all those just to see where we compare. And on average, I think, gentlemen and ma'am, y'all may have the copy, and down at the bottom, you can see there's a difference in the sheriff position alone, 22% difference, and then when you drop down to majors and captains, 25 and 27, lieutenants that we have working the road, 32% difference, sergeants, 27%. And I know the question may be, well, don't police departments typically pay more than counties? And I guess if you look at it on a whole, maybe so, maybe not, I'm not sure. I do know that, for example, in Wilson County, the answer would be yes. In Pitt County, the answer would be no. So those are the counties that we looked at to compare. All we're trying to do is say, based on what we have and and where is it that we need to move to in order to be even competitive. And we're not asking to exceed those positions. We're just asking to be somewhere competitive with those positions, and that's what we're asking for. So with that, one thing that I have noticed is that the current range that people are in, when you look at the range, you got the hiring rate, and you have the minimum, and then you have the midpoint, and you have the maximum. Well, those ranges look really good, but the problem is that typically the only time somebody will get pay increase is with a cost of living, and the board's been gracious to give us in the county cost of living, but that in itself doesn't allow somebody to move up through the range because the starting pay moves up with the cost of living increase. So that's where the compression, that's where you have a 14-year veteran that has thousands of hours of training, only making $3,000 more than someone brand new in the door. And you know his quality of work and his ability to serve the public is going to be much greater. And when he could leave here with that kind of knowledge and that kind of training and immediately go and start somewhere at a much higher salary just because people are looking for experienced people, it's harder to keep someone. So we're trying to adjust that. So what we're requesting from the board to consider is this. We would like to take and have you starting deputies. And then we would like, so that we don't have this compression, because 14 years with very little separation is too much compression. What we'd like to do is move it from deputy, and then we give them a certain amount of training, and they meet certain criteria, and after 3 years, they've met a certain criteria, and then we move them to what we call a senior deputy. And they'd start a senior deputy at another pay step, which would be a hiring rate, and then in another 9 months, they would go to another rate. And gentlemen, ma'am, I believe you may have that paper in front of you that has the salaries that we're requesting it move to. Then in another 3 years, so 6 years on, you know, an officer with 6 years on, if you can keep him for 6 years and you've got all that training in him, then he's able to do other things in the sheriff's office, from investigations to a different type of task because he's got that experience under his belt and the knowledge that he has. So with that, we're hoping to have another position called a master deputy. And then that would be another pay increase. And those pay increases are equivalent to the averages that we were pulling from the other two counties. So based on the other two counties. So then when you have that and you have somebody that stays that amount of time and becomes a master deputy, that gives him a road that if he decides that he doesn't want to go into supervision, then he doesn't have to go into supervision. But what it does is it ensures that all the training that we have, that he's moved up to a point that he's making pay that's equal to or similar to surrounding counties so that we don't have a chance of necessarily losing him, right? So then we got sergeant pay that we've increased, and that sergeant pay that we increased is very equivalent to what Rocky Mount pays, right? And to Rocky Mount salaries. And give me just a second, let me pull mine out.
He's on 232, if y'all not following, page 232.
So the salary that a sergeant would make, we're asking that it be moved to very similar to what Rocky Mount is paying their sergeants. And actually, it's just a tad lower than what they're paying theirs on average. Same thing for our lieutenants. Our lieutenants have to run the shift. They're responsible. They are really, when you have a nighttime lieutenant working, he has no other supervision there. He's making calls for the whole county of everything that goes on. And we know the huge liability that encompasses in just the calls that the sheriff's office has to respond to and the significance of what they're accountable for. So with the pay for lieutenant moving up, again, when you look at the pay that we're asking, that's very similar to what Rocky Mount is asking, paying theirs, and it's very similar to what Wilson, actually it's below Wilson Police and below Greenville PD as well, and similar to what Pitt County is paying. So between Pitt County and Rocky Mount, it's somewhere right there with them. Starting pay for the captain moving up is the same thing. We're not asking Rocky Mount, their captains are making basically $10,000 more than what we're asking the captain pay be moved up here. So it's not even up to what that's paying, it's just somewhere that's competitive with the other scales altogether that we're putting in there. So, and it would move up accordingly through the positions up to the chief deputy and then up to the sheriff. We're also asking the same thing. You know, our jail and our detention center, it's a tough job, no doubt about it. And when you look around, there's facilities that are built that are a lot more state-of-the-art than what we currently have, and they still have vacancies. However, their salary is not really equal with some of the workforce. One of the challenges that we have is just turnover because of the detention environment. So we're going to ask the same thing, and we're looking at detention officers of being able to do the same thing with detention. Take detention officer pay, move it up, and have the same thing with the starting, and then we train them, we invest in them, and then move them to a senior detention officer after 3 years, and then after 6 years to a master detention officer. And then you've got your corporals and your detention shift supervisor. And your corporals in the detention center, when the sergeant is out, they're having to run the entire facility. That is a huge liability that they undertake on their own to do that. And it's a lot of responsibility. I believe by moving these scales up and becoming very competitive in the market with surrounding areas, I believe that we will be able to maintain and retain our employees and not have to continuously start over and over with hiring new people where they leave and they can find a job of really greater pay without a whole lot of effort when they do that. So based upon, and I know that it's been mentioned about a pay study, and I know there's had been mentioned maybe that looking at other counties such as Edgecombe and Halifax or Northampton and in Franklin. The only thing I ask is when we look at those counties, all things being equal, when you look at the values of properties in those counties compared to the values of Nash, and Nash is a growing county. I mean, there's buildings, there's houses going up here, just like it is in Pitt, just like it is in Wilson. When we look at the other counties, the growth is no ways what it is in Nash. So that tells you that the opportunities here that the people see in Nash County are a lot greater than they perceive it in other places, just because of the job markets that are close by between Johnston and Wake and what we here in Nash have to offer the citizens themselves. So we're asking the board to consider the pay, and we done a spreadsheet, and I think you may have that as well. I'm hoping that you do. So on the spreadsheet, with the current salary that we have, when we plugged everything in, and I think this was sent over to finance to look at as well, but it was like $6.7 million for salary. And with adjusting the pay to what we're asking the board to consider, it's an increase of $1.6 million to bring our salary, and it's not just for one individual, it's not just for two, it's to look across the board and bring us in line with the surrounding counties that I mentioned. And with that, that's right in line with the percent increase that we're actually figured on average that we were behind those particular agencies. So we felt like that those counties, not trying to skew any results, but those two counties are more similar to Nash County than some other counties may be. And that's where our job market is really most competitive, is in those particular counties. Does the board have any questions?
Any questions of Major Wilson at this time?
Yeah.
Mr. Belfield?
Listening to your report, first a comment before I get to the question.
Yes, sir.
It looks like the greatest attention as it relates to salaries should be in the detention center. And not only that, I add on to that, good training. They're dealing with people, and I would, in my opinion, probably 2/3 of them in there got mental problems. That's why they're in jail. And many are walking the street too. So I think the detention center is one where you ought to take a look at. I'm looking at those salaries. Those salaries, I can remember way back 23 years ago when that was the top salary. And now they're still there. And that's where, in my opinion, where your attention should be. Those other salaries, your lieutenant, major, captain, and chief deputies, all those salaries would average across this nation as being very good. So going back to, you asked for a new deputy for transporting mental health persons, people. Where are you transporting them? Are you transporting them to a mental institution, a mental hospital, or just shifting them from one detention center to another?
Yeah, it's very rarely that we shift them from one detention center to another. Most of our transports involving taking people from the hospital, taking them to some other facility to be evaluated. And then because they live in Nash County, of course, then when they are released, then we have to go back and pick them up and bring them back. So our transports for the last year, that increased pretty dramatically. I've got the numbers. I'll look through here in just a second and give it to you. I want to say it was like 400, over 400 transports that we made over the last 12 months. So I agree that the detention center, the salaries must be considered and looked at. I agree that the training is very, very important. And mental health is on the rise. Mental health issues is on the rise. Are people that's incarcerated have a lot of mental health issues? I would say that Probably so. That's probably part of the reason that they're making bad choices in their life. I can't say that's all of them. I can say that detention center salaries definitely need to be looked at, but when we look at our officers in comparison to what other agencies are paying, and they're doing the very same job, and the liabilities that come with it, and the decision-making that they have to make split-second decisions and quickly encounter those situations, and those decisions are going to hold a huge liability not only for our agency, our office, but for the county, to be able to compensate them fairly with other agencies that are similar is very important, and to be able to train them. And one thing that we have prided ourselves on is training our officers. We train them to make sure they're prepared. Officers probably receive more training now than they've received in years, right? And we do that because we know that people typically don't rise to the occasion. They only rise to their level of training. And because of that, if they don't have the right training, just like we just had a class and you were talking about training on mental health, training on just de-escalation. So we sent someone to train the trainer to become an instructor and brought him back. So that in itself saved the county money. We didn't have to bring somebody in. But we trained everybody in our office on just how to have what a lot of people will call common sense patience, but to make sure you know how to talk to someone, because not everyone talks in a civil manner, but how to relate to people and how to get them to do things without having necessarily to resort straight to force. So that particular training is, and officers commented just how much they liked it and how they liked those kind of techniques. So with that, our training on our detention side, because they're attending the training as well, we even incorporate that training now in our field training program, because detention officers come straight from the street with no prior training. So we incorporate that immediately into it, and we're training them up so that they have that knowledge. But what I want to be able to do, and particularly what the sheriff wants to do, is he wants to be able to retain these employees and pay them for the skills and knowledge that they have and their abilities that they have. So if we can do that, we do that by being competitive with like counties. And that's why we, as I said before, that's why we chose those counties and didn't choose other counties, because it's completely different economics in those counties. And with Nash County continuing to grow, it gives us opportunity to recruit and hire what we think are some of the best people that we can hire, so that we retain them for the future and build for the future. So although when you look at the salaries, and of course when we talk about salaries years ago, I remember when I started out, I mean, $12,000 a year was considered a good salary. And now, I mean, you can't function on that. So with that being the case, we think to be competitive, that's where we need to be.
Other questions, comments from commissioners?
My final comment on this is that this is a nationwide problem with mental health, and we're paying less attention to that than anything else that I know. And mental illness causes other problems that we have to deal with. And this is one, I think, county government, state government, and even through your sheriff association, you can keep attention on, paying more attention, and then you won't have to worry about them transporting and running them this place or that place. When you get a call, this person need to be transported. That's just a comment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield.
And if I could just say one
Sure,
more
Major.
thing, and I agree that the mental health part is very significant. And that's one of the reasons that we want to make sure that we keep good folks that are trained to deal with those tough situations. Because the situations they deal with, they're extremely volatile at times. And good communication skills, being able to make good, quick decisions is going to lead to better outcomes than folks that may not have the skill set that you need. So that's why we're trying to hopefully maintain and recruit high-quality applicants. All right, sir, you want me to go to the next items on the agenda, or how do you want me to proceed?
What are the next items?
We were looking at
Page 215.
So what I have first on mine is the civilian evidence technician, and this is a new position.
The
Mr.
next
Board.
item will be new positions.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
All right, so civilian evidence technician, currently, we have on-call evidence technicians that are called out nights, weekends, and it's only 2, maybe 3. So they're constantly being called out all the time, because they've gone to schools, they've been trained on it, and if they, you just can't see anybody, so not just any particular person can go to the crime scene and process it, and get all the evidence and bring it in and put it in, collecting DNA, collecting weapons, doing all the firearm stuff. So the demand on the on-call schedule, where they're being called out 2 to 4 times a week, weekends are on call, because it seems as every week there's something that's going on where they have to be on call. So with that, we're asking for a new position for evidence technician. CALEA, we're trying to meet a national standard, and with that national standard, evidence, you know how critical evidence is. If you mishandle evidence, if you don't process it properly, then your case in court is severely impaired, right? And your ability to bring the right evidence and convict people accordingly is diminished. So we want to make sure that we have the right standards in place, that we're meeting a national standard and putting things together. You can't just get anyone to do this position. I mean, they have to have some background, at least some type of degree, 5 years of experience or more to bring in, and that's what we're looking for. So with that, we're asking for a new position to go into the evidence, because if we take someone just from another position, then that's leaving a hole there to fill. So we're trying to pull someone in that we can hire and put in place for that. So we'd like for the board to consider being able to give us a new civilian evidence technician position. That's going to greatly enhance our ability to process crime scenes quickly and really not burn out the people that we currently are using. Some of them have been on there for years, and you would hear them say that, man, it is tough that every other week they're on call and they're being called out 2 to 4 times a week and coming out at night, processing that, plus doing the normal duties during the day. So it is basically pulls a toll on them and their families as well. We have an opportunity for a part-time evidence technician, and that's the next one. The part-time evidence technician, we already have someone in place that will be able to come in. He already has the training experience. He used to be employed here. Now he works for the state. And he would be able to come in, and he's willing to work the weekends. And by working the weekends, he can take some of those call loads off of them as well and work up to 48 hours a month as a part-time evidence technician. So with that part-time position, we're able to get that knowledge. This individual has been in law enforcement, I want to say, over 20 years that we're talking about. And I think you may see the name that's written down on the for the part-time evidence technician that you may have. So with that, we're asking that we get that part-time evidence technician position to help relieve some of the burden on the weekends and give someone extra, even when they have something on the weekend, when the main evidence technician comes out, to get somebody else to help process that scene and relinquish some of the overtime and comp time. It's not overtime pay, but comp time that people are getting. You know, once they get comp time, then you got to find time to give them off. And if they're continuously on call, that's just a revolving situation where it just doesn't happen. So any questions on those 2 positions? All right. The transport positions, We're asking for 2 deputies to help transport. So it was 416 transports we handled in the last 12 months. Currently, we're pulling people from other divisions. With COVID and the schools being out of, not being active, now they've come back. Prior to that, we were able to use our SROs, and they were able to step in and help us quite a bit. But now with schools back in session, that's not going to take place because they have to be at the school to do what they're paid to do there at the school and protect the school. So now without having them, and then with other divisions, you know, the courtroom staff, our civil division, with the court security, and with the civil papers and so forth that they have to do, and increase on concealed carry permits, I mean, it takes a lot of manpower just to manage that as well. So with that, it's very few positions that you can pull from to help with transports. And with 416 transports, and I would suspect that has increased over the years, and as Commissioner Belfield mentioned, mental health issues are on the rise. Transport's going to continue to be on the rise. So with that, we're asking for 2 deputies, and their sole job would be the transports so that we don't have to pull from other divisions and leave a hole in other divisions for that. Those transport positions would greatly help us in meeting the needs of the mental health, getting people where they need to go, transporting them back. There's times that you have to transport completely across the state, and it's almost an all-day trip, all the way to the mountains, turn around and drive all the way back. So one person is going all day long just for that. So, no questions on that. Move to the next next position. This is, we're asking for 4 additional deputies. We're going to put these deputies on patrol. Currently, and it has been since I've been here, and when I talk to people that even longer than that, 7 deputies is all we've had working patrol. Well, we know with 7 deputies working on a shift, you're going to have so many people that are out because of sick, so many people out because of training, vacation, whatever the case may be. Typically, we have 5 deputies working the road at any given time. We try not to drop below 5 because that becomes completely unsafe, not only for our deputies, but unsafe for the public as well, because anything could break loose at any time, from active shooters or whatever the case may be, and we've got to have the manpower to get there. So what we're asking is get 1 extra deputy per shift, and by having 1 extra deputy per shift, that is something that would greatly help with the calls for service. Calls for service because people are moving in Nash County, looking at the new houses that are being built, just with the permits itself. I think it's, you know, what, I think the numbers were like 400 over the last year of new housing permits. So more people are moving. You got North Carolina DMV that's going to be coming here with 400 jobs. I suspect people will be moving to Nash County with that. Nash County is a very popular place. I mean, it's an outstanding county, and because of that, people are coming here. And because of coming here, that increases our calls for service. And with COVID and people staying at home, our domestic calls went up. And the issues with that, and then you have the other mental health issues that are going on that is real, and our deputies deal with it every day. So last year, just over the last 12 months, our deputies handled almost 26,000 calls for service, and you have 5 deputies on the road working. So you have 2,100 warrants that are served, so our deputies are serving warrants. They're helping serve civil papers. They're answering calls for service. And then one thing that we try our best to do is don't stop there. Because when you're not doing those things, we want you to be proactive. We want you to go out, and you know the sheriff wants to stop guns, gangs, and drugs, and we focus on that. And we train our deputies on not only officer safety, we want to put them in driver training, we focus on criminal investigation, because it would be a shame for someone to stop someone on a traffic stop, and that's a criminal with stolen goods in his car where he just broke in someone's house, and you not have the ability to detect that and stop the criminal at his weakest link, which is in transport. And so with that, we ask our deputies to be proactive. Not just wait for a call for service and sit somewhere and wait. We ask you to go out and try to prevent crime and be on the front line and try to make the quality of life for the citizens of Nash County better. And that's what we do our best to do. We know how drugs affect every family that it hits, right? Just had a young man pass away with that. I mean, we're doing everything we can to stop that, right? And it's like a finger in a dike. If you can, water may still escape through, but Lord forbid you pull your finger out, right? And then the whole dam crumbles and breaks. So we're doing our best to keep the finger in the dike and try to keep it so that things don't escalate and don't go bad. So we ask our deputies to do a lot. And because of that, with the more manpower, it's going to help them answer the calls for service. And it's just going to help keep the county safer. And asking for 4 deputies to put on our shift, on patrol shifts, is something that will greatly help not just us, not just the workload of our deputies, but really what it's all about. The whole thing that everything's about is providing the best service to the people that pay our taxes to begin with. And that's what we're trying to do, provide service to the citizens of this county the best that we can and be as professional law enforcement as we can. And that's what we're trying to do. Any questions on the 4 new positions?
Major Wilson, just a
Yes, sir.
couple of things. Do you know what your pre-COVID calls total? If, for example, 19 versus 20, you talked about domestic violence during the COVID times and...
Yes, sir. So I've got some numbers here, and the calls for service in 2019, so we pulled this from 2019 to 2020, and I pulled it for the last 12 months, which encompasses part of 21. So 19 was 25.8, 20 was 25.3, 18 was 28, and then drops down. So all along the gamut, it's from 27 to 26, 25, so it's going to average somewhere around 26,000 calls a year.
Consistent.
So they're pretty consistent. But what I hear from the deputies is the calls for domestics seem to be, particularly with COVID, with people being at home. And it typically, when people are more confined, you get a little more disruption inside. So the actual domestic calls for service, I don't have that, sir. I could find those numbers and run that, but I don't have those
Let
actual
me
numbers.
ask you to back up just a minute, back to SROs. You talked about SROs were running these transports.
Yes, sir.
During the COVID
Yes, sir.
situation. Who handled that prior to COVID?
We would pull whoever we could. Lots of times, we would pull people from our civil division, and they would help out quite a bit. And then when the new courthouse took over, you know, we had to add more people because the old courthouse, we still had to maintain coverage and security for that, plus for the new. So that kind of dampened that. But prior to that, we would call civil, and sometimes the transports would have to sit and wait longer than what we wanted them to wait because we just didn't have the personnel. So we use whatever resources are available to us, and I do have to say that our captains work well with each other when that comes out on patrol, that they have a transport to make, because it goes to patrol first, and if they don't have the manpower, they immediately are calling the captain in civil, and if we have a transport officer that we use in the detention facility, we have 2 there now that's doing our jail transports. If they're not busy, they'll jump in and they'll help. So now we are doing everything we can just to whoever's available, if there's anybody available. And lots of times, the transport may have to sit there and wait. Sometimes they'd have to wait 24 hours, and we're trying our best to get them there before we lose the bed, because it's important that they get there. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You can move on, I think.
Yes, sir. All right. All right, you have another request for our executive assistant. She handles a tremendous amount of paperwork in our office, particularly with the finances that come through. I really don't know how we could probably function without what she does. And we're asking for a requested salary increase. With all the payroll, with all the, particularly over the last year, with the detention center, with everything that we've had budget-wise coming through, with having to look at the paying all the bills and different things, processes, and also supervising other people, that position is, I really don't know how that individual does that with everything that they have. So asking for a salary increase, and I can tell you with the workload that that position has, that is definitely needed, just because of that particular workload. And then we have someone that is in our, that is an evidence technician currently. This individual, I've worked with her on numerous occasions. You're not going to find anybody more professional, more knowledgeable. She'll send out things concerning the law to make sure everybody else is on point with it, and with the salary that she makes, with the background that she has to go with it. And I think the board may have the same amount of documentation that I'm looking at. So she has definitely a strong work ethic, and not only the ability to work. You can want to work, but not having the knowledge would come into play. But she has the knowledge, and she's able to get it done. And with what she brings, and with the updated policies and procedures to meet a national standard that we are putting our sheriff's office under, because we want to not just get by. We want to set the standard. We want to be where people look at us and say, well, that is the way to do it. So with that, we're asking for a pay increase, and looking at her current salary with that pay increase and with her qualifications, I would say that is absolutely necessary. Mr. Chairman, I think that is all the salaries and position requests that I have at this time, sir.
Okay. Any questions for Major before he leaves us? Appreciate you being here this morning. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
The security information officer, who is requesting that?
I'll handle that.
Okay.
If I may, I'll stay at my desk. That's fine?
Sure did, sir.
Okay. This is in relation to the new security station at the back door. As the board knows, facilities and others we've had a committee to look at things to help secure our building, and there have been several instances where employees had to get domestic violence orders against other people, and because of things like on Chesapeake or Virginia Beach and other places, the board made the decision to enhance our security at the back door. What we have here is we anticipate someone from 7:30 to 5:30, 2,625 part-time hours. So we believe we can get 3 part-time people. Either we haven't finalized how that position would be structured in our staffing, but that's an estimate for 3 part-time people working at the back door once we get our station completed. That's all I have. Any questions?
Questions?
Just a quick question. So these people at the back door, would there be other entrances where people could come into the facility?
The front door will be an exit only, like the front door of the old courthouse. I think key cards and the other entrances at the social service side. Yeah, we need to make that a common entrance for non-employees. Employees may still use other entrances,
So you'd
but
have perimeter, in essence, locked down other than the card entrance and the entrance in the area where you come into the building. Otherwise, you couldn't get in. Is that what you're saying? Employees could get in with the card. But the only entrance otherwise would be where we come in downstairs.
is that correct? Mr. Boone?
The question is, we're talking about the entrance area, we're talking about 3 part-time employees. So my concern is, are there other entrances, or is the perimeter locked down other than entry through a card, except for that one entrance? Is there any way to get into this facility other than through that entrance, unless you're an employee with a card?
I think the working assumption would be the only 2 public entrances would be the rear entrance where the screening station is, and then DSS may still accept guests at the front entrance by Washington Street. But that area is already secured, and they have to be buzzed through to go back to meet with the employees. But those would be the only 2 entrances where the public will be able to enter the building.
Okay, thank you.
And because of budget constraints, we're not at this time necessarily asking that this be funded in whole. We haven't finished the project, and but we just want y'all to know at some point, we would like to have someone man that station.
Well, why 3 part-time?
They can't work more than 1,000 hours a week.
And that's on the grant program.
No. To have a retired person or benefits, if they work more than 1,000 hours, retired people are limited to how much they can work.
Yeah, I understand that.
And part-time people, if they go over 1,000 hours, accrue certain benefits. So we were trying to save those incidental 25% incidental fringes and have,
Are you saving any money by using 3 part-time people versus someone that's full-time from the time we open up 7:30 in the morning through 5:30?
you couldn't do it with one person because of vacations, sick time, 26, I think they calculated 2,625 hours, a typical 5-day a week, 8 hours a day, 52 weeks a year is 2,080 hours. So you really couldn't do it with one person.
Mr. Belfield, we were looking at that more on an hour time frame to cover other events that may come after hours as well. So we weren't so much, as the county manager said, this is sort of, we haven't really figured out how it would be, the number of people at the station, but we were looking at more on an hour time frame and how we'd like the hours covered and what it may take to cover that. And so, as the county manager said, with part-time people, they have a limited number of hours they can work. And also, you would have to rotate people out due to lunch or vacations and things like that. So that's why we were looking at a number of part-time if we hired, but we were also trying to address the number of hours that we'd like coverage. So for example, Citizens Academy, when we can have that, we'd like to have someone here to possibly be here during Citizens Academy outside of our 8 to 5 hours. Or if there's a meeting with our, within the DSS department that would fall after hours, or planning meetings that fall after hours, we would like someone here for coverage as well. So that's why it's a few more, it's more hours than just the standard 2,080. And so we're looking at it more on an hours time frame.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. I just have one more question. when
Go
you
ahead,
get a chance.
Commissioner Outlaw.
Would these individuals be trained in law enforcement? Would they carry
a weapon? What would be their ability to control a situation that might occur?
Whether that person would be part of the sheriff's court security, or whether they would be part of facilities, I suggest that most likely they would be retired law enforcement.
I would think that for the purpose of the position, that would, I mean, because anybody can stand there, but not just anybody can be prepared to handle a situation that may occur, so, okay, thank you, sir.
I guess it's the intent that they will work under the sheriff's department.
We have not, I don't believe that, has that discussion occurred?
I think that my response to that would be, Commissioner, I'll raise the question, it really depends on the posture the county wants to take. If we want to have a retired sheriff's deputy, another police officer with a firearm on site, then that's, that's one type of employee. If we want to have more of a security guard, someone that could police the building but maybe is not carrying a weapon, that would be a different posture. So to a certain degree, it's a question of what posture the county wants to take, and it may not be all of one or the other. It could be a mix of the two. So as you see, in this proposal, I think the assumption was, Donna mentioned, this budget a certain number of hours, roughly $25 an hour, so that's assuming it's someone that is carrying a weapon. But if the county elected to go in a different direction or adopt more of a hybrid approach, then we could back that number down. Really what direction we want to take.
I think I hear enough to tell you, put that bed now, that we're going to an armed deputy in that position. It probably seems likely that you would run it through the sheriff's department, and then you'd have some flexibility with the other court security and so forth. So that's a staff decision, but I do hear that we do want an armed officer there. I think that's what we wanted to hold that.
And that certainly is what that budget number is based on.
Okay, that's right. That's right, Commissioner Apple.
Yes, sir.
Other questions on that?
I would just like to have a little bit more information
Sound like
in
we're
the
going.
direction of the recommendation as to
Right.
why we're going that way.
Right. I think we're going to get some more, Mr. Belfield. I do know it's something we've talked about for quite a while, and the project itself, Mr. Boone, looks like it's a lengthy process, as one commissioner said something to me yesterday about. So hopefully we can finish it up pretty soon.
When you get the materials, I think the contract is ready to be done as well.
I fully understand that statement, sir. All right, through with that one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next one is cooperative extension, and that would be on page 240. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So as you know, that the farmers market has really experienced some tremendous growth, and the job responsibilities in that position have experienced some evolved into greater responsibilities. Therefore, we're requesting that the position be upgraded from a part-time position to a full-time position to manage the market. We have seen as the responsibilities with the EBT that was desperately needed to be a part of our market offerings has brought on greater responsibility. We are having a longer season of opportunity to provide, with our vendors being able to provide their produce. Generally, we are starting this Saturday. April will be the beginning of the market, and we are now running through a December market. There's been an increase in the fall of available produce, where in the past, we would kind of drop off there in August. We would have a small market in the fall, but we are seeing a longer time. We have been very blessed with our market manager being able to have the ability to write some grants, and they've been able to acquire some grants that support wider opportunities and growth to help our vendors. We've had an increase of opportunities when it comes to educating and providing our vendors with some further training to help them with their product and their growth of their businesses. So on the off time, we've already offered several trainings. So we are just seeking that opportunity as the growth of that position really has evolved to a larger responsibility. During COVID, we did not have the rentals. However, we anticipate when that downtime is, that those rentals would come out to be, and that is the responsibility of the market manager to man those rentals, and that's somewhere we do expect growth as well on the off-season time.
Any questions on this one? I think we've had this in past budget requests, the same request in past years.
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Can you define part-time for this person? Does that mean this person works 50% of the time, or what is part-time?
Well, part-time is that 1,000 hours that they were mentioning. They cannot go over that 1,000
Okay,
hours.
so would making this person full-time, if they're at 50% now, would it in essence double what you're asking on the increase?
A little bit more than that because of the benefits.
Okay. thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Just one question, Sandy, before you leave. Is this position totally county funded, or is it partly?
It's
totally
all
county?
county
All
funded.
right,
Yes, sir.
thank you. Grants and intergovernmental. Patsy Bender removing, I guess that would be you. Good morning. That'll be page 241.
The grants and intergovernmental relations area has experienced significant growth over the past 18 years in responsibilities. 2 employees are currently responsible for many tens of millions of dollars in grants and loans for a variety of projects, including those affecting various departments in Nash County, and like public utilities, parks and rec, economic development. But we also at times assist the 11 municipalities and outside agencies which are financially associated with Nash County, for instance, the community college with the construction of the 2 buildings, the grants for those. Often this leads to some project management responsibilities as well as grants or loan management responsibilities. And we sometimes are also charged with administering special projects like high-speed internet and back years ago, quarter-cent sales tax referendum. We also offer community development services, housing repairs, and associated street and stormwater repairs. And we coordinate our Citizens Academy, and we assist with legislative duties, and we coordinate some internship programs for the county. We have also taken advantage of other grants that are a little outside of our area sometimes, like the COVID grant that we recently got that has 3 components, including subsistence payments. And we sometimes do things like take meeting minutes for certain projects. We currently have, as I said, 2 positions in the department, and we have no shortage of workload. We've done more with less for a long time, and adding this position will increase productivity and organization, plus allow for training within the department to allow for succession planning, which will be very good for the future of Nash County. I do think that this will make Nash County more efficient, more effective, and our area is one where the county gets an excellent return on its investment. For me to come to you and ask for this position means that we have needed it for some time, and I would like to know if you have any questions.
Any questions of Ms. McGee on this one? I heard a word in there that I do not like to hear over here, secession, but I fully understand it. I hadn't read this in detail, but what exactly position would it be? I know the two positions you got.
It would be a high-level administrative support position that can help a lot with organization and enable this person and the other person to accompany me with different projects, and we spend more time together, whereas now we don't have much time to do that because we simply are so busy doing tasks. There's not a lot of internal training that we have time for to provide a level of expertise that will be needed.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for what you do. Mr. Lamb, you're looking around. Everything okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, everything's done.
The next one would be administrative buildings and utilities, which I think it would be Mr. Boone. Yes, it is.
That's correct.
Good morning again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. I have a couple of requests for your consideration. These are existing positions, so these are not new positions. But we currently have 2 full-time utility customer service representatives, 1 part-time position. Actually, the part-time position started with us earlier this year, back in February. But with the growth of the utility, certainly the expansion to the Northern Ash area, the workload in our office has increased significantly. So that part-time position was added, and the request you have here, really the two are related. Currently, the full-time positions that we have are funded 100% through the utility. But due to the nature of work, certainly the facility maintenance side, there's quite a bit of paperwork that comes through our office that is related to facility maintenance, processing invoices, paperwork, things of that nature, handling work order requests. So our request is twofold. One is to take one of the existing full-time positions and allocate 60% of that salary, so 3 out of 5 days to the facility maintenance side of our department, or the general fund side of our department. And then to take the part-time position, which is currently 3 days a week, and increase that position to 4 days a week. And you may ask, why 4 days a week? We'd like to go ahead and go to 5 days, so if you see the need or see an opportunity for us to go ahead and increase that position to a full-time position, we'd love to have it. But along the lines of trying to retain good employees, we have hired a part-time position, and what we'd like to do is at least increase that position to 4 days per week. That allows the county to start offering some benefits. So that allows us to keep an employee that we've recruited, that we've trained, and has done an amazing job for us in the few months that they've been with us, and hopefully keep her, and eventually that position does become a full-time position. So again, the request is twofold. One, taking existing full-time position, allocate 6% of the salary to facility maintenance, a general fund, and basically the savings that we'll realize in the utility fund will help cover a majority of the expense for this part-time position that we've added to the department. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Questions of Mr. Boone on this? Is there any difference in the benefits between 4 days and 5 days?
I would probably be best to refer that question to Mr. Kirkland.
Okay. He is not present at the time. Do you know Mr. Lamb?
I believe 32 hours a week pretty much puts you
It does in private industry, I just do not know about
I
government.
thought it was prorated, but.
It is prorated, the benefits are prorated.
80%, that's right,
Okay, you'd get 80% of the benefit.
That's correct.
right. But we provide,
The full health insurance,
Yeah,
but other
full health
benefits, vacation and sick pay would be prorated. So, but it's because of the way that health insurance works, it would be the full health insurance.
that's right.
Mr. Boone, do you have anybody else, I mean, are there other type positions in facility maintenance other than this person that you're going to allot 60% to facility maintenance?
On the administrative side of the house, no, sir.
Yes. So you have none presently?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, except to say, a portion of the director's salary and the assistant director's salary
Sure.
is allocated to
I
facility
realize
maintenance.
that,
As far as
but just-
administrative help,
Backup staff, all of it is on the enterprise fund?
that is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Management Information Systems, starting on 244. Mr. Lamb, we're taking in a lot of information here this morning. And of course, I'm trying to keep notes of what my thoughts are. So we're going to see this budget again after we hear all this, that you're looking for responses from individual commissioners, or I'm just not quite sure where we're,
Yeah,
what the idea is of how we would follow up on what we hear this morning.
the process in the past has been that y'all, am I on? Yeah.
You are.
It has been that y'all go through new positions, salary increases, expanded positions, and the capital projects, and either at a later commissioners meeting or another work session, you discuss them and give us direction on those matters.
I really think we're going to need another work session and walk back through these, is my belief. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. But I hope we get the level of explanation that we're getting this morning, or at least a reminder of what we had. I don't think we need each department head to come back in.
Right.
But if I'm sure Donna has good notes to kind of prompt us what was said this morning. I'm just trying to clarify things before we get the list too long of what I'm trying to remember. Excuse me, Sandy, go ahead, please.
No, you're good. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm requesting 3 positions for the MIS department, 1 position each for each of our tech teams, and 1 for the communications division. MIS had an information technology specialist position frozen about approximately 5 years ago when a staff member left, and I'm requesting that that position be restored to provide better, more timely frontline service to our customers. The recommended help desk IT staff user support ratios are recommended to be at 1 per 60 people or devices supported. Staffing comparisons with similarly populated counties, Wayne County, as of a year ago, had 13 IT staff, Moore County 12, Lincoln County 9, and those are smaller populations than Nash County. We are currently at 1 per 240. Over the last couple of years, in addition to our normal support customer base, MIS has assumed support for 3 police departments, Nashville, Sharpsburg, and Spring Hope. This was done in order to secure their access to the Nash County network for the new Zerker suite of applications that were implemented approximately 2 years ago now. That significantly increased our customer service base and devices supported. The other tech position that I'm requesting is a system security specialist position. This position will maintain and manage security systems, ensure compliance of security practices with applicable policies and regulations, test backup and contingency plans, and provide for county staff related to system security policies for training those staff. With this current cyber threat landscape, it's critical that MIS have a dedicated position whose sole focus is to monitor and address the Nash County security posture. The current network engineer and network administrator are doing everything possible to keep up and are already overtasked with their current tasks and responsibilities. They're racking up overtime in order to stay on top of things. Security is critical and requires a dedicated position. Counties, our counterparts across the state of North Carolina have implemented or are currently implementing this position on their teams. My last request is for a person to assist our communications manager, Jonathan Edwards. Jonathan Edwards is currently a one-man show, as I'm sure you're aware. All after-hours and weekend coverage is done by him. He alone is responsible for covering those events after hours on weekends during the day and producing the finished product. In order to grow his program, he needs help. And with the board's indulgence, I'd like Jonathan to talk about the communication specialist position and his vision for growing his program.
Before we go to that, can you go back to you talked about the 3 townships that you were supporting. Can you
Yes, sir.
elaborate on that? I'm not aware of that.
IT was brought in a little late to the Zerker project in that some promises were made to those entities and licenses were purchased, had already been purchased, and promises had already been made to those groups that they could have access to the Nash County network. That's a huge security concern for us to allow them access to our network. We don't manage their devices. We don't control whether or not they have antivirus. We don't maintain, the patching on their systems. So in order to give them the access that they were expecting, and they needed it. I mean, there was no question that they needed to have that access. We put in an SLA, a service level agreement, with each of those 3 groups that they signed, and we took over support for all of their devices. We evaluated them prior to making this decision to see what level they were at. If they were at an acceptable level that we decided was acceptable, and they were not.
So that's 3 townships in Nash County.
3 police departments.
Okay. Do they provide any funding to support that, or is that just?
Not currently, no. Not to my knowledge, they don't.
When did that start?
We've taken them on gradually. Not all of them were prepared to go initially.
Well, I just recommend you revisit that and come back. I would like to hear more information on that, how we got into that, and particularly if we're providing that service. I know when we provide services to other townships, there is some cost to the township.
The only cost that I'm aware of, and I could be wrong, but the only one that I'm aware of is that they purchase NetMotion licenses, which they purchase through us, but they pay for it themselves, and that,
I'd just like to know more about that when we have our work session.
certainly. It's Nashville Police Department, Spring Hope, and Sharpsburg. Okay. And with your indulgence, I'd like for Jonathan to speak to his position.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I know you all believe in the importance of good communication, and since I started with the county, I've expanded our efforts in promoting Nash County, our programs, and the initiatives set out by this board. Today, I'm asking you to consider expanding our communications effort with a new communications specialist position that will focus on graphic design. Responsibilities of this position would include a weekly event calendar for the public, advertising programs and important dates, a weekly event calendar for the press to help promote our activities and encourage coverage by the media, producing internal and external newsletters, assisting all of our departments with the development and production of print and digital advertisements, flyers, signage, documents, and logos that adhere to our brand standards. This position will also assist with photography and website and social media administration, allowing me to expand the number of press releases issued by Nash County and increasing the amount of video programming for Nash County Television and social media. Together, our communications team could develop more multi-format campaigns and produce a strategic communications plan for Nash County. Thank you for your time and consideration. And do you have any questions?
I just have one. So it seems to me, and you do a great job, and I know this board appreciates all that you do to promote Nash County, and I think it's helping in our efforts to promote growth of the county, actually. But would this person, if this person were approved, would it be something that would be possibly shared with the Economic Development Department? Because that's what it's really sounding like to me. It's growing the county, promoting the county. Could that position be a shared position if they had a need for?
That's right. So my position already, I assist all departments with any needs they have, creating materials or photography or videography. This position would also do the same thing. We would assist any department in those needs that they'd have.
They have a need.
They do. They regularly.
They'll have a big need.
They do regularly ask for my assistance with drone footage, photography, graphic design. This position would be doing the same thing.
Thank you for what you do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good work.
Thank you.
In a week's time, out of curiosity?
Probably 50, 55 hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank the board for allowing us the opportunity to share with you our needs. I know you have a daunting task ahead trying to develop a budget for this coming year. We're grateful for any consideration that you can give us on our staffing needs. Do you have any other questions?
Other questions? I'll just reiterate what Mr. Outlaw said. You brought something that I had no knowledge of. I would like to hear more about whatever we're doing there.
Absolutely, be happy to.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm going to call for about a 10-minute recess at this time at request of a commissioner. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Call the meeting back to order at this time. We finished up management informational systems, and we're now on park facilities maintenance, 247 and 248. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have 4 requests today. 2 are in the Park and Facility Maintenance Department, and the other 2 are in the Recreation Department. The first request is for a full-time park maintenance specialist position. This position will assist the Parks Maintenance Department with the operation and maintenance of county parks and athletic fields. This position will prepare athletic fields and assist with mowing, trimming, and other landscaping duties. This position will also perform other grounds and park facility care duties as assigned. At the moment, we currently have 3 full-time positions in this department. We have a parks manager and 2 parks maintenance specialists. Currently, our Parks Maintenance Department, they're responsible for approximately 126 acres of parkland within the county. They're also responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of 18 baseball and softball fields, 7 basketball courts, 5 soccer fields, 4 multipurpose fields, 7 playgrounds, 2.4 miles of walking trails, a disc golf course, 1 special events lawn, 11 picnic shelters, and 6 restroom/concession buildings. During the peak season, normally from February to November, on a daily basis, our guys are preparing 10 to 12 baseball fields daily, plus lining soccer fields, inspecting playgrounds, and still doing landscaping work all throughout the county. That's it for that request. Any questions?
Questions on that request? Thomas, had we already added on someone for Miracle Park, or is that what this is about?
Well, we're not necessarily adding them to a park. We just, because those guys, on a daily basis, they go all throughout the county depending on where we're playing at. The last fiscal year, we added an additional employee from Glover Park from the merger. So that gave us 3 full-time employees.
Okay. So we really hadn't put anyone on yet with the opening of Miracle Park?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Just a quick question. In the information, it says non-athletic program. What does that mean?
That's the other request. I haven't got to that request
Oh,
yet.
okay, sorry.
All right, go ahead, sir.
So the next request is, we're asking for additional increase in part-time salary for next fiscal year. And this is due to the increase in baseball tournaments that we've hosted since July 1st for COVID-19. So since the beginning of fiscal year 21, we've hosted 24 baseball tournaments, and that's since July 1st throughout the county. And we have 28 scheduled so far for the remaining of this fiscal year. So we normally average around 5 tournaments per fiscal year. So when we were doing our budget for last fiscal year, we only allocated $3,300 for work on the weekends. So we normally, as I said, we normally do around 5 tournaments per year, and I do believe that we will continue to host these tournaments moving forward in the future. An average tournament, we use around 3 employees at each park. So say, for instance, we have games going on at Glover, games going on at Ennis, games going on at Spring Hope. We're using roughly around 3 employees at each park. On an average weekend, they average around, on an average day, it's 12 hours per day from roughly 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we split that shift with employees, both full-time and part-time. However, you know, that workload can be kind of tough on our full-time staff. So when I was doing the math, if we do 24 hours per weekend and we have three employees for one park, that's roughly around $20,000. So if we continue to host these tournaments, our need for salary, staffing and salary is going to need to increase.
But it's all related to the athletic programs.
It's all related to, the maintenance guys work on the weekends. Our park maintenance guys work on the weekends. And they also get assistance from the recreation division as well, so I even assist them on the weekends sometime. But normally in the past, well, this past couple of months, it'll be times where we have, as I mentioned, 3 different locations going at one time. We've been told that, you know, we're a prime location for hosting the tournaments, being that we have 4 parks located within a 20-mile radius. That's Spring Hope, Ennis, Coopers, and Glover. So,
Those additional tournaments that you're talking about, I'm hoping, and I know you are, that that's going to increase the number of events.
yes, sir, and
Doesn't that provide revenue to the county?
yes, they pay a fee of $150 per field per day. So,
Well, I don't need the specifics of that, but I guess the point is, have you looked at what you are projecting the activity to be and what the projected revenue would be from that activity versus current? So you could see how that might impact your request for new positions, new hires?
no, sir, but I can
Okay,
have that.
Might want to look at that.
Okay. Any other questions?
That might justify it in itself.
That would include what they spend while they're participating in the activity.
Correct, and I send out.
Which would be a part of economic development.
Analysis, yeah.
Thomas Barber does those calculations all the time. She could help us put that together real easy, I think.
Yeah, and I have a spreadsheet that I include on the monthly report.
Right.
So if you look in the Recreation Division, it has those numbers and what we estimate the economic impact per weekend.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Have we put more money in revenue for next year because of the increase in tournaments?
If I can recall correctly, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
All righty. The next request is for a full-time recreation program supervisor position. This position will handle special events within the county. It will be responsible for planning, organizing, and implementing those special events and non-athletic programs for the Nash County citizens. Over the past year, our athletic staff, they were implementing different special events and non-athletic programs during COVID-19, so they, so we can remain relative. So the special events and non-athletic programs that this employee will be responsible for, they will be responsible for all our outdoor movie nights. We were handling the daddy-daughter dance. We're doing the mother-son luau, the Halloween events, our Spooktacular and Trick-or-Treat Trail, the Winter Wonderland event, cornhole tournaments, Calls with Santa, bicycle rodeos, and our summer camps. So just different programs that are not your traditional athletic programs. So that person will be responsible for those events.
Do you do that now, Thomas, yourself?
Do I do it now?
Do you handle that yourself now?
I mean, I've done some athletic, some non-athletic programming, but we have it's a combination of all our staff that's responsible for these programs. We have someone that's doing the movie nights. We have one that's doing daddy-daughter dance. But with our athletic program steadily increasing, especially our adult athletic programs, we have an employee that's just responsible for adult athletic programming. We have someone that's responsible for baseball and softball, because we offer that fall, during the summer, and during the spring. So,
Would an internship program be of any interest or benefit to Parks and Rec if there was interest from the college, the community college, someone that was leaning to go in that field?
yes, sir. I'm always
Do
a
we
big
have any
advocate for
interns in the
internship.
county at all?
We had one that helped us out, assisted the park maintenance to go through the Golden Leaf Foundation last year.
Well, I'm talking about volunteers to come in for a volunteer intern program. Do we have anybody like that?
We do.
We do?
We have someone in our HR department and someone in our IT department that we do internships.
Okay.
And the final request is for an increase in our salary for recreation side. Since COVID-19, as I mentioned, we've been doing these non-athletic events. So some of the events require a lot of part-time staff to be on site to assist us as well. We've also increased our programming in youth and adult athletic sports. So we've offered kickball, youth ball, spring soccer. So we need additional funds for that staffing as well. And as I mentioned, we may have someone that's in charge of baseball, and we have all 5 baseball fields going at one time, and that person is not able to be at 5 different sites at once. So we use our Recreation 3 and Recreation 4 as site supervisors to assist with staffing those sites. And that's for basketball as well. We use we use Coopers, Nashville, Spring Hope, and Middlesex. So we use part-time site supervisors to assist with that staffing those practices and games. Also, during COVID-19, we want to make sure that our facilities are safe. So I reached out to different departments, Rocky Mount, Tarboro. They've been having personnel on site for practices, and not just to assist with cleaning the equipment, but they also report any injuries on site. So that's what we are looking for additional funding for, to assist with making sure we are covered at our practices and games for the future. Any questions?
Any other questions for Thomas? How many total positions is that, Thomas?
2 full-time positions, and the part-time, we would just split that up amongst the part-time employees we have, because, part-time, they can't work every day, so we use different site supervisors to assist us with covering those events throughout the week.
Are those people readily available?
We normally like to get their availability, and our staff, we send out a schedule monthly. And if they're not able to work, say for instance, a site, Rec 8-3, which is we call our site supervisors, Rec 8-3s and 4s, they're responsible for finding someone to cover their shift if they're not available to work.
Okay.
Another Rec 8-3 or Rec 8-4.
I just noticed a lot of different people doing that.
Yeah.
I was wondering how many actually you had in the pool.
We got 60, I want to say it's 60 part-time employees that we can choose from.
60? Okay, no wonder I see so many. I would have never known that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you do.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have an update on the origin of the assistance to Nashville, Spring Hope, and Sharpsburg. Apparently, they were all on the prior system prior to us going to Zerker system. And so when our systems went to Zerker, those 3 entities came on also.
And they're the only 3 entities in the county that's on that, with the exception of us?
That's my understanding.
That is correct.
Yes.
With instruction given to both the Sheriff's Office and Emergency Services that no one else could be added without approval. The level of access that was given to those groups with the Zerker system was an increased level of access from what they had previously with the old system. So that's where the concern came in with security and allowing them to have access when we didn't secure those devices.
It was pre-existing with the old system. We brought in a new system, so there had to be some enhancements in order to make sure it's, good security, given all the ransom stuff that's going on with local governments. And any questions on that?
Well, I'm not really an IT person, so I don't understand all that technology, but I do understand all the breaches that there seem to be with these systems. Does that increase our potential for situations like that? What could they do on their end that might compromise our system?
That was why we said that the only way that we would allow them to have access to the new Zerker system is if we controlled their devices. That was the only way that we were comfortable in allowing them that access. That means that their access to our system is no different than any of our other employees where we control the device and we maintain the patching and the security and the antivirus and the monitoring. And also, it was also done, I think we're right at a year for the first one coming online.
So I guess that's something we plan to continue doing going forward.
When we brought them online, it was going to be reevaluated on a year-by-year basis.
Well, does that reevaluation include the potential for them providing funding for that service?
That
Okay.
was mentioned to them at the time. We didn't do it initially because we needed to get them on board fairly quickly.
Okay.
But that proviso was made to them.
So that's going to take place, that discussion?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to really know how that turns out.
Anything else, Mr. Lamb?
I'll handle the next one, social services. Ms. Hamlet's here, but this, I'll explain this one if you're ready.
Are we ready?
Yeah. You can see here, we're reclassing 3 positions. One of them's actually going down. They currently have about 12 vacancies in social services, and of course, Health Department also does. And a couple months ago, I asked them to look at their entire organizational structure and if they need to make changes to make it more efficient. I asked them to do that. They had a retirement of an income maintenance administrator 2, and what she's asking is to have 2 income maintenance administrators 1s. That means 1 position goes down 2 steps, and then these other 2 positions that are going up exceed my authority of 2 steps, and so it requires board action. Normally, this is something, if it's not in the budget process, we would bring to y'all and ask that we have a reclass. And so that's really all we're doing here. Again, 50% of this money we are reimbursed by the state. She feels like she needs 2 people. Well, you can speak to it. Right now, that one person had many people underneath her that she's recommending that we have 2 people supervising those people. So, and then also the last one there, same situation, reclass a position to restructure that department, that division. So you can see the net cost is around $16,000, but because it is more than 2, there were some other changes that were within 2 grades that I was able to do, but I wanted to show that middle one just because it's an offset of the first one. So this is actually something, both this one and the next one, she would like to have this effective April 1 because these positions are vacant, and at some point we would ask that the board go ahead and approve this reorganization, not necessarily right now, but in the near future, maybe Monday at the regular meeting. Next, Mr. Hill's here on the Health Department. This is a typical Health Department new position. It costs no county dollars. He also has about 10 or 12 vacancies right now. He is, as y'all know, working every day to get vaccine in people's arms, and he is requesting this position. It's totally funded by two or three different programs, fully funded by the state. All state. So, next.
Can I get just a little bit of clarity? Yesterday, we were dealing with departments that had requested stuff that administration didn't approve, and then I thought that was a second level. On new positions, are we seeing everything and the administration didn't approve anything?
We do not approve any new positions. The board has to approve new positions.
I do understand that, so, okay, I think I've got the question answered.
Yeah. Yesterday, things that staff, our budget team had cut out, we gave each department the opportunity to voice their concern and their requests for adding back those.
But there aren't other new positions that the staff is going to recommend that we do approve that we are not seeing here?
No.
We're seeing all of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have the authority to allow a department head to do a temporary position.
I'm not really into that. I just want to make sure I understood what we were doing with this process today.
Yeah. And so now, I guess I'll hand it back to you for the emergency communications.
So that took care of social services and the health department. Anything else either one of those directors wishes to add? Got one no. Mr. Hill? You're fine, okay?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
why come we can't go ahead and approve these today?
You can't.
And just
If you want.
keep it off the agenda Monday and just go on and vote on it? The health department's no cost. The others just changing positions and we just, and she needs it by April the 1st.
If the manager recommends it.
That would be fine. I didn't know if y'all wanted to start voting on positions, but yes, I would very much appreciate both these four positions to be authorized by the Board of Commissioners today, if possible.
All right, you've heard the request. Any questions of Mr. Lamb? Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve these four requests.
Second.
And it is four positions total for the two departments?
3 reorganizations and 1 new.
Okay. Have a motion.
Which part?
The departments would be social services and the health department, all under human services. It's all comes under Mr. Hill, but two different divisions. The health department is state funded. What is the situation under social services? Is it partly state funded, or is it any money involved?
Cost us 60.
There's money involved. I believe these numbers, does that include the
No, if you look in the notes, the estimated 50% local appropriation for the first one is $4,610.
Right.
The next one, it would be a decrease, it wouldn't be the full decrease of $6,593, it's a decrease of $2,044. And then for the income maintenance administrator, it's a local appropriation of $4,317.
So the figure on the right is the entire cost of the position change, including state funding. The positions in parentheses, the amounts in the parentheses are the net to the county cost.
All right, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other questions? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stands approved.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now on emergency services. First one is the emergency communications 911 on page 255. Mr. Brantley, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. The first one is the emergency communications 911. Back in 2013-14, we asked for 4 new positions to fill out the each shift, having 6 personnel on each shift. We received 2 positions back then, And those two are working a floating type schedule now that they come in and work peak periods. One of our issues is that call volume, traffic stops. I think you heard Major Wilson talk about the increase in his call volume, his on-call personnel being contacted. Mental transports come through our 911 center to set those up with the sheriff's office. Couple of traumatic events for our 911 center with the law enforcement community in the past year. Just brings us to a point that we feel like that we need to be better prepared with our personnel to handle these calls. And we actually feel like we're short-staffed on some occasions with people out sick, having to call people back in, paying their overtime. And these positions are extremely important with all of our fire, rescue, EMS, and law enforcement. And the traffic stops are quite a bit more. I think the law enforcement community is becoming more proactive, trying to prevent things from happening, drugs and so forth. And so the traffic stop is a very time-consuming and labor-intensive because we cannot lose focus of that officer stopping that car. And we are dedicated to them, and our staff and Mr. Fisher and myself feel like that there are times that maybe we don't have sufficient staff in there when that's taking place. So we are asking for 2 telecommunicator positions. We would certainly like to get those positions in July, but if I know in the past we've worked with y'all and y'all have worked with us and the county manager as well, and we hire in January, which would certainly help us also. Again, the call volume is up. Some years it's actually been up 25% to when it was when we got these positions, and then an average of 11% in call volume. So that is the telecommunicators that we're requesting at a total cost of benefits and salary, I think is $106 on that sheet. Any questions about those? I have Mr. Fisher here. I appreciate all the information he's provided me with the call volume and statistics. But our staff has had a very difficult year, again, with those type calls that we feel quite a bit of responsibility for when those incidents happen. And we certainly want to stay prepared for looking after the field personnel in the county. Any questions?
Mr. Brantley, just back to Major Wilson, I had asked him the same question. What is your activity pre-COVID versus 20, which was COVID? And I think his response was, or the numbers he gave, was it was basically the same, although it's mostly or more domestic. So that would be one question. What is your situation pre-COVID versus COVID? And what is your current staffing per shift versus what you requested in 14? You said 6 per shift you'd like to have. Is that, what have you got now?
We have 5, and then on peak periods, we bring in those additional 2 that we got back in 13, 14.
So you got 5 now per shift?
Yes, sir. And then these 2 people would actually, we would not have peak personnel. We would actually put these 2 on 2 shifts. The 2 we got in 13, 14 on 2 shifts, so we would have 6 personnel on each shift rather than 5, and then bringing in the other 2 for peak periods.
So you've had 5 since 14?
Yes, sir, and
Right.
then the 2 that was approved.
Right. So what is your volume?
Looks like the
versus
latest
COVID.
one I have, Bryant, let me see.
Just give me 19 versus 20 will be fine.
Okay, it looks like 74,019, 74,621, and 75,797 and 20.
All right, 19 was what?
74,621.
And what was 20?
75,797.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Is that calendar year or fiscal year?
That, I think, is fiscal year, right, fiscal.
All right, other questions on that? We're on emergency services then.
Okay. That is in our Emergency Management Division. Brent Fisher is our division head for that. Brent is requesting that we look at a deputy emergency management coordinator to assist him. I think we've all been taxed this year with COVID, and I do believe that the partnerships at Emergency Management started many, many years ago, working with all of our county departments, whether it's disaster recovery, whether it's disaster response, working with the sheriff, working with health department for sheltering, working with social service sheltering, all those things that took place during disaster operations, which was coordinated by our Emergency Management Division, I think has prepared us to respond to the needs of the county with COVID, and working again with all of our departments in the county. It's amazing how well Nash County functions with, it doesn't seem to be any turf battles that one department has to have more authority than the other one, and I appreciate that, and the health department has done a great job working with our folks, coordinating all these responses to the COVID situation. And that deputy would assist. Right now, we're utilizing our deputy fire marshals in the Emergency Management Division. And those deputy fire marshals have state-mandated inspections that they have to keep up with. They also are doing commercial plans review. And I have ordered them to put COVID as their priority, and they have, and we have gotten behind in our inspections, but we don't think there's anything more important than, as I think Z said a while ago, getting shots in people's arms. So we have dedicated ourselves to that and assisting the health department with that challenge. Brent is, again, he's got the 2 deputy fire marshals and a part-time fire marshal, but we would really like to get this deputy emergency management coordinator to assist Brent with emergency management responsibilities. I did talk to Brent about this morning. If that's not possible, if we could add some to his part-time list, maybe $10,000 to $15,000. We had 2 part-timers at one time, and one of those part-timers assumed a administrative position with Rocky Mount Fire Department, so he couldn't work during the day for us. He was on a shift and got promoted, so we lost him. But if we could get additional, if we couldn't get the position, we would certainly appreciate any additional part-time help to get Brent some help in that emergency management division. Any questions about that one?
I don't think so.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is the date right? It's my understanding that this reclass occurred in 2013, not 2015. Isn't this the position that Scott had, and then he became the assistant?
Okay, what happened in that situation was when we went with a deputy emergency services director, which Scott had a reclassification, Scott Rogers.
Right.
And then Brent was moved into Scott's old position. So Brent's position was never filled. He was the deputy emergency management coordinator.
And this would fill that position?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, so it should be 2013.
Okay, all right. And of course, the last one is EMS. This is a, whatever happens here, this is a challenge for all of us, and I think, Mr. Outlaw, you asked the last meeting to show the numbers First thing I want to do is thank Donna and Melanie for pulling these salary numbers together for these positions. And what the intent is to get us to what the norm is for schedules. Our employees are now working 2,912 hours per year. We have, I want to thank Scott Strufy as well, and again, Bryant for pulling his stuff together on 911. But the fluctuating work week is Franklin, Halifax, Wilson, Edgecombe, Johnson, Northampton, and Wake County has gone to 12-hour shifts.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt just 1 second? I just want to make sure, did you want to do the other positions?
Yeah, well, I was going to...
Oh, a combination, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Where are those numbers?
Those numbers are actually on, that's why I wanted to clarify.
Okay, well, I can go back.
No, no, it's fine. I just need to let the commissioners know. So the information that he's discussing right now is included on page 261. So I think it's a combination of 261 and 218 for the books. So
Let's, if we don't mind, let's finish up Emergency Management Services, EMS, first, and then get into that. Or are you through with that one?
No, I wasn't through with that one.
Right.
But we certainly can go with that.
Well, let's do that and then get into the shift situation.
Okay. Well, what we're asking for there is an operations officer. And what we have done this past year is, of course, we have moved Dale Griffin, and Dale spoke to y'all before about our decon operations with COVID. And we have added additional responsibilities to our battalion chiefs, such as fleet maintenance, building maintenance. We've got others doing different responsibilities, and we just feel like that we need an operations officer to help maintain the daily activities of EMS as far as getting things done with equipment, helping with personnel, and all the additional responsibilities that come with operations. And with that, it would also require us to do and the reason it sort of ties into the new schedule is we've asked for that same thing with the new schedule. But and then other than that new position, it would require that we would move someone up into the training position. We've got an employee that has stepped up and basically helped us do our training as well as she can, working 2,912 hours on a shift. But she's also doing our training for us because Dale has been moved to the COVID and operations position this past year. But we would need for that someone in the department to be reclassified to that program supervisor training that Dale is in now. The other thing was the EMT community paramedic program. They are currently at a grade 68. They have to go to additional training. They respond to many acute type calls. They're looked up to as the person getting on the scene with, you have to have many years of experience to get to that community paramedic standard. So we were asking that those three community paramedics be reclassified. And of course, if we change the schedule, that gives us 4 community paramedics because we'll go to 4 shifts. Right now, we've got A, B, and C. With the 24/72 shift, we have A, B, C, and D. So that was another request, was the EMT paramedic. And I think I heard Mr. Belfield talk about mental health. That's one of the things that our community paramedic program is trying to get more involved in. They've got much more training than the average paramedic in mental health. And we're also working with Trillium through Integrated Family Services. When we have a mental health call and an ambulance responds, and say the person is not transported, our community paramedic is notified to try to get some help for that person with mental health through Trillium's Integrated Family Services. And we feel like we're making that connection, that somebody that has a mental health issue now has somebody they can turn to, and I would say Integrated Family Services through Trillium has been great to work with drug abuse and mental health. So again, our community paramedics are working on more mental health training for themselves. Any questions about those? Scott, is that what you thought we were going to? I was just thinking we'd go with the other one first, but this works out fine.
Mr. Chairman.
I'd just like to ask, if I could, you talk about fleet maintenance and things like that, that they've assumed that additional responsibility. Who was doing that before they assumed it?
Basically, Scott Strufy was. He was looking after that, and prior to that, George Winstead.
So let's just say that hopefully COVID is not going to be here forever. It sounds like a lot of this is based on additional responsibilities related to COVID. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, I think it's certainly reasonable to look at this and think it is. However, we have added so much to the battalion chiefs. Every month, they've got to get 25 timesheets done, and I think finance and HR would tell you that the EMS timesheet is probably one of the most complicated timesheets in the world.
So have we not always done timesheets?
Yes, sir. And
what's changed about them to complicate them?
Just the additional things, that the call volume, the COVID situation.
But we've looked at the call volume. Now, the call volume seems to be 1920 fairly consistent.
Right, but I'm saying back from when we initiated the battalion chiefs, their responsibilities have just kept growing.
When did we initiate the battalion chiefs?
We used to call them shift supervisors, and the battalion chief has probably been around about 7 years, I think.
So we've been into that 7 years.
The battalion chief title, yes, sir. And I just feel like that they are doing a lot of operational things and administrative things that this new operations officer could help on a daily basis. And he would be there. The battalion chief runs calls. He's got time sheets to get done. He's got personnel matters to deal with. For example, Jamie Moss has done an outstanding job with fleet maintenance, making sure our fleet is in as good a shape as it can be. We've got Lee Davenport that is responsible for all of our IT stuff, working with Sandy's office, making sure all of our mobile data terminals are working, the software is functioning. Then we have David Talbot looking after our facilities, working with Jonathan Boone's department, making sure our facilities are in good shape. And we just, COVID has had an effect on it, but Mr. Outlaw, I really believe we needed this position before COVID.
Yeah, I'm not questioning that.
Right.
I'm just trying to understand.
Right, and I just think it has just shown a light that, you know, that staff position was needed, and it continues to be needed, but I hope this board feels like no matter what happens, we're going to make it work. If you can't do it, we're going to make it work. If you can do it, I think our service will be much better.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification for the board, now that we've finished the new request for positions and expansion of positions, the 3.168 million you see at the bottom of page 218, that is already, all those requests are incorporated in the requested budget that we provided you yesterday. What he's getting ready to go over, the shift change information, the board requested a cost analysis on if they change shifts. About 3 or 4 months ago, the board requested them to do this study, and this is not in the budget. So if the 1.5 would be in addition to what we presented yesterday.
When you say the 3.168 is in the budget, which budget?
Requested, it's in the requested.
Requested budget, okay.
Right, it is not in the
Recommended.
recommended. We have
Okay.
not recommended any of those
Gotcha.
at this time.
All right. Everybody, I'm clear on that. I think we all are. Go ahead with your shift
Okay.
situation.
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention that Scott has worked on is we looked at what the operations cost would be, not the personnel cost, but the operations cost would be to add to the EMS budget if we decided, or if the board decided to go with the 24/72 shift. And what we did is we had to put in uniforms, we had to put in the turnout gear. It's not fire turnout gear, but it is a fire retardant type turnout gear that I think runs about $900 to $1,000 per set. Is that right? And so we added lockers, some potential having to buy some beds, a turnout gear for the new employees it would take to make this fourth shift. And that would be approximately $30,000 added to the Nash County EMS budget. Now, that included no personnel, which, again, I thank Donna and Melanie for giving us these numbers. And what we had to do was go through, and of course, you can't hire 25 or 26, and that 26 person, it actually takes 25 to do this. But the 26th person is that operations chief. So that was in this as well. And that's included in the 1.5 million. But we're having to break up the current shifts because we can't hire 25 new people and put them on one new shift. So we'll break up those personnel, and then we have to assign a community paramedic to that shift. We have to make sure we have a battalion chief, make sure we have station officers. So you'll see, even though we may be hiring a brand-new EMT, we'll still be promoting somebody to a battalion chief or a field training officer on the fourth shift. And so we've got to get training done. Let's say we advertise today and we hire July 1st, we've got to train 25 people to come into Nash County and function as a paramedic EMT or advanced EMT and have them ready to go, hopefully within 2 to 3 months on an ambulance with some experienced personnel that we'll have to bring from other shifts, breaking those shifts up. We know it's an expensive proposition, but we also know that eventually it'll probably happen sometime, because 2,912 hours is what our people have been working for many, many years. And as you can see, I mentioned earlier, Franklin, Halifax, Wilson, Edgecombe, Johnson, Northampton have already gone to the 24/72 schedule.
And they work how many hours?
2,184. Our employees, I don't think our employees are, we're very fortunate to have the quality of employee we have in our EMS division and all of our divisions. It's not like they're saying, do this or we're leaving. But I do think they see around them the surrounding counties doing it. And I think they're glad it's on the table, even if it doesn't occur right at this moment. But I do feel like it will be the best for our employees, and I understand predicament y'all are in with the situation with additional positions being requested. But hopefully that gives y'all a good idea of the cost of going to the A, B, C, and D shifts. Is there any question?
But you do have people leave because they go to another county for
We have,
better
yes, sir.
shifts. I mean, I know 4 right now.
Oh, yeah.
You ask them, why'd you leave? Well, they won't but one reason, and that's because the amount of hours they have to work, the shift they have to work. The pay's fine, the bosses is fine, you know, but it's all about pay and hours. Not about pay, but about hours and shifts.
Yep. And we did have
What I'd
a,
like to know, though, is you got some of both. I've had several tell me, if indeed we went to this, that they would go somewhere else where they work the schedule they're working. What I think we really need to find out is what your true numbers are, if you can do that. If how many want this and how many want that. Because there are some of both.
I have not heard anybody say they would leave if we went 24/72. Now,
I have.
Okay.
Because they do something else besides work here. That's the issue.
Well, I had a committee meeting about 3 or 4 weeks ago to talk about the future of Nash EMS. And part of that was talking about if we ever go to a 24/72-hour shift. I actually appointed a committee that's looking at how you would go through the promotional process when you're adding another shift. You've got to have 2 field training officers. You've got to have a district chief. You've got to have a battalion chief. They are meeting. The other subcommittee was how do we train these 25 new people we bring in and get them through our field training evaluation program in a reasonable amount of time so we can start running the 24/72 shift. I think they're meeting next Thursday or vice versa. Everybody in that room, and I think it was 11 or 12 of us, said, please, let's go 24/72. There was not a soul in there that didn't want the 24/72. Now, that doesn't mean there's not somebody, because evidently somebody has talked to you, but I don't know of anybody. Scott, have you heard anybody? It appears to me that everybody that I've talked to said, we're not fussing, we like our job, we love Nash County, but it sure would be nice to go 24/72.
I don't even understand the difference, quite frankly. Tell me right quick what the 2 shifts look like.
Okay,
Shift
our
you
work,
do now, what is it?
our work week starts Friday morning at 7 a.m. If you work that shift, let's say, for example, Jamie Moss's shift coming in Friday morning at 7. They'll work Friday morning at 7 to Saturday morning at 7. They're off Saturday, come back Sunday morning at 7, and work till Monday morning at 7. And this is the one that's getting them. Then they're off Monday and come back Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday. That's 72 hours that they work from Friday through Wednesday morning at 7. If that same thing occurred on a 24/72, what you would do is you would work 24 hours on Friday. You're off Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Come back Tuesday. You're off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Come back Saturday. You're off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
And if 24/72 means 24 hours working, 72 hours off, and you just continually rotate.
That's correct. Yes, sir. And you can see where that gives that employee that break. I've heard Scott Strufy say he'd come in to work for Nash EMS, and he would work all day after seeing a nurse that morning at 7 at the hospital. And then the next morning, she's coming back to work after being home 12 hours, and he's still on duty. So he sees 2 sunrises. And then it seems what's getting them is you work Friday, you're off Saturday, you work Sunday. If that ended and you had a 3 or 4 day break, I think they'd be okay. But then they've got to come back another 24. And so that week, they're working 72 hours, and the next week, they work 48. So that's the difference, and you hit it right on the head. You work 24, you're off 72, it's simple. The timesheet is amazingly simple, and that is, I think that's what's getting us, is that 24 off, and 24 more. Then they get their 4 days off. But that's how the current shift works.
Could I ask just a couple of things? Question. And I worked, actually I worked with Scott's dad at Abbott, and we worked a 12-hour shift. And I'm just trying to relate it to that, see if it was pretty much the same. But what we did, at least the folks that worked on the production line, we worked 3 days, 12 hours, and then the next week we'd work 4 days, 12 hours. So the 2 weeks averaged out to 40 hours per week, basically, and we would flip ends of the week after we completed all that. So is that kind of what's happening here, Scott?
It's similar, it's just more intense because you're talking about 24 hours on providing clinical patient care and driving.
Yeah, and that's my next question.
Yeah.
So my concern is twofold. I think that people are reluctant to tell their boss how they feel about change. So that's just my opinion. So there may be some way to anonymously, through the staff here, get that information, and you wouldn't even be involved in it. People are reluctant to give input, particularly if they think it can be tracked back to them, because they're fearful of retribution. So I'm not saying that would be the case, but that's the way some people feel. And the main thing that concerns me about the 24-hour thing is that you just talked a little bit about your call volume, how intense it is and how much it's going up and so forth. Would that mean that these trucks on a 24-hour shift could potentially, and I believe they could, be running all night, 24 hours straight without any rest? How does that tie into the fatigue factor, and how do you handle that? That's got to decrease their ability to do their job. And I got to believe that would begin to weigh on those employees, and you may end up with a bigger mess than you think you got. Now, I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Right, and I certainly don't disagree that can happen on the current shift, and it can happen on the 24/72, that you are working a busy station and you rock and roll all day long and don't get any rest.
Would you agree that wouldn't be a good situation for that crew?
I agree that it's happening now, and I don't like it.
It's happening in a 12-hour shift.
No, it's on the 24 now.
They're on 24 now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're talking about going to the 12-hour shift?
Well, this will be 24.
They're both 24.
It would still be 24,
They don't
but
change
you
that
would
part.
not be working 72 hours one week and 48 hours the
I'm
next.
totally confused. I guess I don't understand.
I do now, but I
Help me
didn't.
understand. You got it, help me get it.
Okay, right now, what they're suggesting to do, or what's been looked at, is you work 24, you're off 72. You work 24, you're off 72.
Right.
That don't ever change.
Right.
That constantly happens.
And
What they do now is,
Well, I just asked Scott, was it similar to what we did at Abbott?
you have
3, 12,
12-hour shift, and we're talking about 24.
okay, I thought they were doing a 12-hour.
No, they
No,
do
sir.
24.
Is that what you want to do, 12 hours?
No, sir, right now, it's,
They're both 24.
So you're doing 24, how many days in a row?
okay, you do, right now, you work Friday, off Saturday morning, and you come back Sunday, you're off, and you come back Tuesday. So that's 72 hours from Friday to Tuesday or Wednesday morning
So
itself.
they work a 24-hour shift and they got varying amounts of time off?
One day.
One day.
Then they work another 24, then one day off, then another 24, and then 4 days off. What they are looking forward to is the 24 hours and then 3 days to recover from that, rather than having one day and coming right back, having one day and coming right back.
I got it now. I guess I'm thinking still back to when we ran that manufacturing operation, we had two crews, an A crew and a B crew, one crew working 12 hours. Actually, we had four crews, 12 and 12, 12 and 12. Okay, I got it.
Now, I will say this also.
That's tough.
If we ever
Both
go
of them, too.
12,
Yeah.
if we go 12 hours, if you hired these people to work 24/72, which there's no question the majority of our employees want it, there some that maybe don't. But then you have the opportunity to go 12-hour shifts, which I think will be mandated by federal law in just a few years to go 12-hour shifts. But our employees love the 24-hour shift, most of them. So we actually could, let's say in 3 to 5 years, we could go 12-hour shifts with the same number of people. We wouldn't have to add another
wouldn't need
shift.
four
We would be going more to the exact shift you worked and the shift 911 works now.
Well, if you do it with the same employees, I'd skip that step and go on to 12 hours then.
Then I would have folks coming to see me.
But your argument, Brian, don't work. I mean, I'm sorry, it don't work if you're gonna keep them on 24-hour shifts.
Well, I'm trying to get by, the point is, the employee's saying, if I work 24, and then I'm off the next day, the next day, and the next day, I'm going to be ready to come back and work 24. Right now, they're working 72 hours one week and 48. The least amount of hours our EMS employees work, unless they take off, is 48 hours in a week. And you know, I personally see the 12 hours coming. I really think that's probably the best thing for everybody. But I can tell you that the employees love the 24/72 schedule. We actually had a second or third ranking officer from a larger county around to help us with interviews the other day, and he said that he was worried Nash County was going 24/72. He said because he's hearing employees with his agency say, if Nash County gets away from that fire department schedule, they're going to apply at Nash County because of the 24/72. You work so many less hours in a year. Yes. Yeah.
The only reason I'm standing up is I worked the shift that we're currently on for 13 years. So I have probably the best perspective of it. And our staff right now, most of them have never done anything else other than this shift. So some of them are hesitant to change, even though they know it kind of needs to happen because of the fatigue and the lifestyle and the constant state of fatigue. I remember being there. I didn't even realize it. I think back now, and I couldn't appreciate how tired I was all the time. But with going to 24/72, it certainly eases that transition because everybody else around us is already doing that. And to your point, we've had a number of employees leave to go to that shift because it's less hours and less calls and similar pay. Granted, I still think they will admit that we're still probably a better service, but they're like, ooh, that schedule. It impacts retention, it impacts recruitment because we're hearing it at least, that there's a lot of people that would love to come to work here, but ooh, that schedule. So I don't think there's anybody that would argue that 12-hour shifts is not ultimately the safer shift to be on. The problem is I think if we go to 12s right now, we haven't fixed our recruitment and retention problem. Because everybody, the market, the employment market likes the 24-hour shift. So that's where all the staff goes. And to Brian's point, I agree. I think at some point we're going to get some letter from somebody, some regulatory body or something that's going to start shifting pressure to 12s. And if we're already on 24/72-hour shift, we have the staff and the budget to go 12s. There's no extra effort required. It's a shift change at that point. So I do know, Mr. Davis, just to clarify, I've had numerous employees tell me that they do not like the 12-hour shift and would probably leave. I have not had anybody tell me they would do that with 24/72.
Well, I tell you, I don't have any interest in going from where we are to what y'all talking about. I would make the move all the way to 12 hours and get it over with. You
Yes.
both would stand there and say it's gonna happen. We like to stay ahead of the curve. And I grew up in a family that worked a very odd schedule. And I know the fatigue on 24-hour shifts. It would just be best if you're gonna fix it one time.
Yes, sir. And Wick County and Durham, and I know Moore and several other counties have, or at least completed or started the transition to 12 hours.
Right.
So that is certainly now within the market.
Yeah.
For several years, I was all about that transition getting to 12. But the 24/72, I know you instructed us to find out what the employees wanted. And that's ultimately was the overwhelming majority request from the staff was the 24/72. But like I said, there's no way I could stand here and argue whether 12 or 22, which one's safer. I think that's obvious.
Well, you know which one's safer. There's no argument there.
Yes, sir.
It's just a matter of your concern, and I understand it is what your employees want. You got to have employees.
Yes, sir.
But on the other hand, I mean, I agree with you. I think, I'm not saying the fire department is not a critical, intense function, but I think we would agree that your group on a 24-hour schedule is probably much more out there than a fire department on a normal 24-hour period.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, you guys are out there. I mean, look at the calls you're running. You're constantly out there. So these firemen, I don't want the firemen, I love firemen, but I mean, they're in the department, they make a run when they have to, they're out there, they put themselves at risk. But when they're not out there, they're kind of doing what they do at the department. I guess I've never been a full-time fireman, but it just seems to me that at some point, you're going to have a serious issue, a serious situation occur that's going to force you to go to something less than 24. I mean, 24 on, 3 days off don't do me any good if I have a serious incident because I'm fatigued out there and I lose control of the vehicle and injure myself or somebody riding in the back of the vehicle. I mean, I just think you're better off to go ahead and look at the 12-hour thing if it's something we're going to consider doing anyway.
Yes, sir. Well, it's certainly something we would need to get back into in detail, but I've spent enough years dabbling around and looking at this information to know that these budgetary figures would be very similar.
Yeah.
Because it's ultimately still 2184 hours a year per employee, and that's the same thing with the 24/72.
If I was on that truck all night running back and forth, that wouldn't work well with me. 12 hours is tough enough. I've worked that a long time.
Yes, sir. And
one question.
Yes, sir.
Does this affect pay? Going from one system to another, would it affect pay?
Well, it would completely change how we pay the staff. We currently operate on a fluctuating work week, which is an extremely complicated process, the figuring the pay. And this would transition us to a standard hourly rate and time and a half over 4. So that whole side of it would be together.
So what I'm asking you, if you're adding that many, will it mean that an employee will make less?
I think we would have to be very careful about what the market rate of pay is for an EMS provider in our area. Even the 5 and 6 or 6 counties around us that are all working 24/72s, so they're working 2,184 hours, are all making at the end of the year very similar to what we're making. So the value of an EMS worker is pretty constant regardless of the total hours that they're working.
Mr. Anderson, the question is, at the end of the year, if we make this change, is an employee going to make the same thing he's making now?
I think they would need to remain competitive in the market, yes, sir.
It seems as though there's a difference of opinion here on the 12 and 24/7. why don't you do a survey of the employees where they don't have to identify themselves? And the survey may be that all they have to do is make a check as to what they prefer. And I think you would get a pretty good answer as to what the staff members would like. They're not identified. They don't have to do writing. You can't identify them by the writing. And I think you have a good consensus of what their staff would prefer, either 12 or 24/7.
We have not done that exactly, and I certainly have no issue with
Well,
doing
you
that.
ought to.
But I stand here very
I had-
confident telling you that after, this has been circulating for a number of years in the department, and 24/72s, I would, if I was a betting man, I'd put my money on 24/72s without any question. But I certainly don't mind doing that to confirm
I
that.
had, last week, before last, an employee who's working with COVID-19, the vaccination. He said, this thing is just wearing it down that I can't do my regular job out here doing this. We need more help with COVID-19. And that person said, you be careful if you're going to call in attention to this, that I don't be identified. So do a survey, this is my suggestion, of all the employees where they can't be identified, and I think they'll be real honest with you, which they prefer, 12 or 24 hours.
Yes, sir.
But still, with that,
Let me say about surveys.
excuse me, Mr. Aaron.
Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. I can follow you.
If you're going to do the survey, I mean, you got to include certain things, like why they see it as a disadvantage, each system, the positives that they might see out of each advantage, this system. And also, you got to, as managers, got to put in something in there that, a question where you see the benefits or the disadvantages. All those questions had to be answered in order to get a true feeling of where people's interests are.
Well, in fact, the survey would actually be irrelevant, because the real concern you just mentioned, you feel like you're going to be moved to that anyway because of fatigue and concerns with the people putting themselves at risk by being out there 24 hours constantly. So who do you talk to see if that actually poses liability for the county? And I know we're in that situation now. But if your calls are going up and your people are running more calls, they're staying on the road all night, there's got to be some liability there. So in my estimation, the 12-hour thing would be where you would want to go. But as far as the hours go, it's basically the same. You got 36 one week, 48 the next week, so it's basically the same.
Yes, sir.
There's not much difference in the hours. But I think the bigger issue is, can you stay on a 24-hour, and how long do you stay? When I was at Abbott, again, I hate to keep referring back to that, but you know this, Scott, your dad knew this very well. You cannot just work people forever. They've got to have a break. They've got to have time for breaks. They've got to be rotated when they're in a situation that they're doing repetitive things. I mean, these people have got to have some time, otherwise they get fatigued and they're just not as effective. I think there's a lot of work to be done on this before we make any decision on it.
Mr. Lamb?
Some things we've done.
Excuse me, Brian. Let me,
Okay.
Mr. Lamb's trying to speak for quite a while. I'm going to call on him, then I'll get back to you.
I appreciate it, no problem. Three questions. One, are both the current system and the 24/72 considered fluctuating work weeks?
I can tell you from all the counties that surround us, every county but one is paying it straight by the hour.
But
Wilson County still maintains fluctuating work week on the 24/72, but they're the only one I'm aware of that's doing that.
Okay. And just for clarification for everyone, the fluctuating work week is an anomaly in labor law. federal labor law. It came about because firemen, and more in cities, firemen are also paramedics, that there's an exception for firemen and paramedics that they can work more than 40 hours a week, and anything over 40 hours a week, since the idea is, it started with firemen, I believe, is that they have a lot of downtime where they're waiting for fires, and therefore the law allows them to be paid after 40 hours, believe it or not, half-time. Not time and a half, but half-time.
No, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I didn't know if everybody was. So that is quite an anomaly. Most labor law people can't believe it exists, but that is.
Well, it exists because it takes into account that that person it was originated for slept a whole lot of the time he was on duty.
That's exactly right.
That's just what it was there for.
Yeah, the firemen, and then firemen became paramedics also in cities. And so it is an anomaly. And so the cost is less than what you would normally think for overtime, time and a half. My other question is the 2472. I know from past experience that a whole lot of, in more rural areas, a whole lot of EMTs work for multiple jurisdictions. Does the 2472 encourage employees to work part-time in addition to their full-time job with us? Or is there no more encouragement than the current situation?
I think both of them do that.
Yeah.
It would be my thought there. Any 24-hour shift encourages you to work. And that's the complaint I've heard, because the guys that got from your people have got their routine set up where they're working somewhere else. And they like that more days off in a row so they can work more somewhere else. And you can't work, 24 hours somewhere else if you don't get more than a day off.
I have to admit, I was guilty of that when I was working that shift myself.
Right.
I was very young and didn't appreciate what I was doing, but I would go from agency to agency to agency back and forth just because I was young and didn't have anything else to do, to be quite honest, so.
You didn't have enough sense not to do it.
Right, exactly right.
Not to be blunt.
It affect the opportunity for pay.
Well, regardless of what we do, how you do it, I said a survey, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. You ought to involve the employees in whatever changes you make. What recommendations have? Some employees have pretty good recommendations.
Didn't you say you had a committee working on that?
I think about Sam Walton, how he did with Walmart. He had set up there where employees made suggestions, and they came up with good ideas, and some of them were adopted, and it made it a great organization. So whatever way, I think the employees need to participate in it.
I just don't think we can sit up here and tell y'all how the best way to do your scheduling is, where it's 12 or 24. Y'all should be able to come up with your best bet. When it comes to employees, I think when you're looking at 2,912 hours against 2,184, 728 hours a year less that they would work, that's 60 hours a month if you want to break it down a little smaller. But 60 hours a month is big. I think for us to sit up here and try to tell you where to do 12 or 24 is something y'all need to work out, not for us to sit up here and tell you which one would be the best. And, you know, 5 years from now, it might change. But that's just my opinion, and it ain't worth a dime, but that's what I think.
You feel better, don't you?
I feel better.
That's worth something.
Well, I'm not
I just don't think we should tell them how to do it.
I'm not attempting to try to tell you what to do, but I am encouraging you to not make a change, and then because of labor concerns, mandate it on you to come right back and have to make another change. That's going to be a very unhappy workforce.
Well, I just personally tell you my opinion there's no doubt we've got the toughest schedule of any EMS service in many, many miles. That's 29 on 12 hours. I feel like with our management team and the way Nash County treats their employees, we have 2 openings. We got counties around us that have 9 openings that run this shift. I think we know we're doing some of the right things. We're working people longer and we're hanging on to some of them, but we are losing them. And most of them are leaving here because of somebody working 24/72. They like that schedule. But me personally, I like a 12-hour shift. But to look after our employees, we used to send ambulances at 3 in the morning from Nash General Hospital to Chapel Hill, Greenville, Duke. We quit doing that because we knew our employees had run calls all day, and we would send them out of the county at 11 o'clock at night, driving an ambulance after they had slept in it since 5:30 that morning. We quit doing that, and we put in our night convalescent truck that works 8-hour shifts. They come in, they run those calls if they're going to Duke. We started rotating. We had employees that, like Robbie said, somebody said you didn't know any better, you work. They said, let me work 800 all the time. That's the hospital station. Let me work 700 all the time. That's South Rocky Mountain. Busy truck. Nope, you're not going to do it. We're going to start rotating you from busy station to slow station. And even with COVID, that's what we're doing now. You come in and work a period of time at the busy stations, and then for the next 2 weeks, you can't work that busy station. You got to work a slower station to try to give their bodies the break it takes. And I think the employees recognize that sure, it's not the best schedule, but Nash County is trying to look after us. And they're not letting us, because we don't know any better. I don't know if Mr. Arrington or Robbie said we worked those part-time jobs and too many hours ago we didn't know any better. I think the employees see, hey, now I know why they won't let me drive a truck to Chapel Hill at 3 in the morning unless it is an extremely critical patient. And that doesn't happen much. So we are trying to look after the employees. And they are leaving for the 24/72.
And there's another thing, you know, if you start something now, it's voluntary. If 4 or 5 years down the road, emergency management services or the federal government or somebody says you can't work these folks for 12 hours, then there's a difference in having a choice and a difference in something being mandatory, you know.
One thing we haven't talked about today, if you're really looking at trying to reduce the call volume on that crew, if we're going to continue to study this, I think we should look at the addition of additional trucks and responding vehicles per shift. Adding an ambulance, adding first responder vehicles at different outlying areas to help with that call volume per crew.
Well, that would certainly increase these numbers personnel-wise. But there's no doubt that some of our trucks, the employees get a break when they are over it. I don't mind saying the Middlesex truck is not as busy. Maybe the Spring Hope truck's not quite as busy, but you get into Rocky Mountain and those trucks are running. That's why we try to rotate these employees so they don't run those busy stations. But you're right, if you had more trucks, you'd certainly eliminate. If we put 2 trucks at 800, which that convalescent truck at night, they're run sometimes up to 7 calls at night. Some of those are convalescent, but some of them are taking the burden off of that 800 crew that would have been running those additional 4 or 5 calls. So we've tried to get that night crew, so it does help do exactly what you just said, Sue, to get that, takes a little burden off that South Rocky Mountain truck and that hospital station truck. But certainly if you added more trucks, it would reduce the call volume on the other employees.
Okay, I think we have learned on this discussion that we have work to do. So I'm hoping y'all and staff will continue working on it before something is presented to us. I'm sure you will. Any other questions for them?
I got a budget question.
Yes, sir.
If we were to go what you proposed here, this 1.5 million, did you say one of these positions, new positions you have requested is included in this so we could really take it off that side of it, right?
There is one of them included.
There's one?
Yes.
Well, that was one that we were hoping to get either way, if we stay as we are or if we go.
So if you go this way, these other positions you've requested, you still need, as well as this whole new shift?
With exception
Nothing
of
would
one.
change?
No, with exception of one.
With exception of one?
Yes.
Well, we would
Which
still,
one is
that's
that?
in, that person is in the 26 employees on that sheet that showed the 1.5 million.
Okay. All right.
So he-
And
he
I
can vote
guess
on it.
one of the questions, I think Mr. Arrington brought this up, is our employees, the way we had looked at the schedule was, if your starting pay is $32,000 as an EMT now, it would stay $32,000. That's the way we had assumed that we would do the 24/72. And therefore, working 2,184 hours, you make within a few dollars of what you make working 2,912. And the employees are saying, gosh knows, I'd be a fool. That's just, I wouldn't have worked as many hours, I wouldn't be as tired. So I guess I need to sort of get a feel from y'all. Do you reduce pay for an employee just because you're changing the shifts for him? That is a big point. I do believe Mr. Arrington made that point, that if...
Mr. Brown, we can't answer that question for you. Y'all in the industry, you got to tell us what industry standard is. I mean,
Well,
I've assumed all along that the person's pay wouldn't change.
Right, the
That's
base
what I
pay.
think.
And that's where we are very competitive with the base salary without this halftime, overtime, all that thrown into that complicated schedule. And that's where I hope we could stay, is that competitive salary and go with the 24/72. And
Well,
come
we
up with
look, we
about $1
look
million.
for a proposal to come from management, and you got to work with management, and then it's brought to us. So we don't need to be in the intimate details of what it is. We look for the management to make a recommendation to us.
Right. And I think trying to answer Mr. Arrington's question was, is an employee going to lose a lot of money if you change this schedule? And basically, the way we have thought about it is, no, you wouldn't lose money, wouldn't lose much.
Base pay wouldn't change,
Right.
but the opportunity to make extra or either, like I said, work someplace else with the system that you have now. That affects the
Got it.
overall picture for some employees. That's really the point.
Right, right. Well, I appreciate y'all putting it on the table. It's been something that we've talked about for years. We've seen other counties do it. We've known there's been employment restrictions, and we understand that, and we do appreciate y'all letting us put it on the table. And our employees are very thankful that y'all are helping us look at it. And
Thank you, sir.
Steve for his
Just
help
one
in
final
finance.
question, Brian. Can you tell us what other counties are actually doing this?
Oh, yes, sir.
Well, what I'd like to get, Mr. Outlaw, is a full look at what every 100 counties in North Carolina is doing.
Okay, perfect.
How many is 12, how many is 24/72, whatever different venues right there, tell us what all 100 counties are doing.
And then you can get an opinion from the different
correct.
variations as to how they like it or
Right,
don't like it.
right,
Get the
right.
pros and the cons.
And the bottom line is whatever works best for us.
That's correct. So let's just let you take time to do that and then send it through administration to us.
Okay, be glad to. Thank you again.
Board, we are now on item number 6, which is scheduled before lunch. It is 12:10. Do you want to do 6, or do you want to move 6 to after lunch?
Go ahead.
Which one?
Go ahead and do it.
Go ahead and do it. Thomas, can you tell us about how long the next one will take?
Should take 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll certainly go ahead and do it then.
It's gonna be cold.
Welcome both of you back.
Yes, sir. Well, thank y'all for having Patsy and myself up here to give an update on the Miracle Park. It shouldn't take that long, no longer than 10 minutes. Some of the ground we're going to cover today.
We're starting out pretty bad, but go ahead.
You going to move it for me, Patsy? Okay. So some of the ground we're going to cover today, just going to give a little brief update on the history of our department, then move into the timeline of the park development, then discuss Nash County Miracle Park at Cooper's Phase 1 and 2, and then we'll close with the ground opening ceremony. So Nash County, we began operation in 2006 with 1 employee. Currently, we have 9 full-time employees, including myself, 5 on the recreation side, and 3 on the park maintenance side. We currently operate and maintain 6 parks throughout the county: Ennis Park in Red Oak, Bailey Middlesex Park, Spring Hope Community Park, Castalia Community Park, Glover Park, and the newly Nash County Miracle Park at Cooper's, which we're about to discuss. So the timeline of development for the Miracle Park at Cooper's, in 2004, we received a Nash County Parks and Rec Comprehensive Master Plan identified the need for a district park at the Tar River Reservoir. In 2008, that plan was amended and to add a community park in the Cooper's area to fill in a section in the county that was not served by the municipalities. In 2014, both of those parks were included in our 10-year master plan, comprehensive master plan. And in 2017, the county finally purchased 46 acres of land on 3471 Joyner Road for this new Nash County Miracle Park at Cooper's. Also in 2017, we were awarded a $500,000 Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant to assist with the funding for this park. We were also awarded a $750,000 grant from Trillium Health Resources. Late 2017, the design contract for Phase 1 development was awarded to Stocks Engineering, and we also received a $60,000 grant in 2018 for the Major League Baseball Tomorrow funding. Mid-2018, that design contract for the all-inclusive Trillium Playground was awarded to Cunningham Recreation, with game time involved with the equipment for the playground components. Late 2018, construction contract for Phase 1 was then awarded to PLT Construction Company, and we did the groundbreaking ceremony in November of 2018, and Phase 1 was projected to be complete in December of 2019 at that point. Last February, early February, soft opening for the park was done on a Monday, a rainy Monday, and we are planning the formal grand opening on May 15th at 11 a.m. at the Miracle Park at Cooper's. So some of our major funding sources for the Phase 1 funding was Part F grant. We had a $500,000 grant. Local funds were $918,000, $750,000 for Trillium. The Cooper's Community Development Corporation raised $250,000. We received a $125,000 grant from the North Carolina General Assembly and the $60,000 grant from Baseball Tomorrow funding. So the total funds were approximately $2.6 million for funding in Phase 1. And Patsy, do you want to speak on or add anything to the funding for Phase 1?
No, if they have questions, I can answer them. We've drawn down all that we can at this time, and we'll continue to draw it down as quickly as we can.
So some of the amenities in Phase 1, we have the all-inclusive playground. All-inclusive playgrounds, they're designed to provide a safe place where children of all abilities can play together and are developmentally appropriate for children with and without disabilities. We have 4 baseball fields, 2 large fields, 2 small fields. We've completed some work on one of the larger fields that had a sloping hazard, so that work is complete. We've installed a 2-bar handrail, and the landscaping is completed with pine straw, juniper shrubs, and azaleas. We've also just recently completed the electric work on the scoreboards. Staff checked the scoreboards yesterday. They're up and running and just ready to get out there and get some usage. Picnic shelters. We currently have 2 picnic shelters that are around 90% complete. The shingles for the roofing should be complete by April 30th. And the staff is in the process of identifying scouts to complete the other 2 picnic shelters. So once Phase 1 is complete, we're looking at 4 picnic shelters during Phase 1. We have 2 basketball courts, a special events lawn, a quarter-mile walking trail, and the concession slash restroom structure, which is still under construction. And we are anticipating that structure being complete on April 30th of next month. Also, Pat, well, she moved to Phase 2. Was one item left in Phase 1, the Eagle Scouts, they began installing the flagpoles the weekend of March 20th, and they should be complete within the next couple of weeks. They were out there earlier this week trying to find some designs for the barriers around the flagpoles. Also, Allen's Nursery donated landscaping at the entrance of the park as soon as you pull in, as well as 20 crepe myrtles, which staff will have planted hopefully by the grand opening. So Phase 2, at the moment, there has been no discussion on when the development of Phase 2 will begin. Potential amenities will depend on funding and public input. Some of the amenities that have been discussed were a splash pad, tennis courts, small and large dog park, disc golf course, additional walking trails, and additional parking. So as I mentioned earlier, our grand opening ceremony is going to take place on May 15th at 11 a.m. On that day, we'll have our opening ceremony begin at 11, followed by T-ball games that will be at 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. And staff is also programmed for a mother-son luau, which is a free event to the public from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So we will have food available for that whole day while supplies last, and several games for the mother and son luau consist of a fun walk and other competitive events for mothers and sons. We've had some donation and sponsors for this event as well. U.S. Foods has donated 500 hot dogs and 500 buns. Ribeyes donated 500 hamburgers and buns, and Williams Food has donated 500 hamburgers and buns, as well as Piggly Wiggly donating meat for the chili, and Sunset Slush Italian Ice has agreed to give 1 free shaved ice per individual that comes to the event that day. Butch's Grill, Butch Moore will be volunteered to cook all the food, and we received several monetary donations from Hester and Tucker, Miss Duke, Project Hope, Providence Bank, and RTS Screen Printing. And at this time, Patsy and myself, we'll take any questions.
Questions?
I've got a couple questions. I wanted to see, was the park constructed so that field lights could be added later if those funds were available?
Well, when we first began planning for the park in this area, we promised some of the residents that we wouldn't have lights for a couple of years. So hopefully, within the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years, we can get some lights.
Okay.
Subject to funding.
Yes.
Right, that's right, I understand that. Also, tell me again, what was our estimated completion date for the concession stands and restrooms?
April 30th.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Other questions?
No questions, I just want to give you a round of applause for all the hard work you've done here.
Thank you.
Good job, yeah.
Thomas, we have currently out there 2 soccer fields.
Yes, sir.
Is there room for more in a later phase?
We still have some land to develop in the back, as I mentioned, depend on public input.
Right. Okay. So you got an activity field separate from the 2 soccer fields?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you play soccer on the activity field?
On the special events lawn?
A special events lawn, yes, that's correct.
We could potentially put a field there, but I think our main usage is going to be like for outdoor movie nights and other events that
I
staff
was
may
thinking about the
bring.
little bitty fields I see at Red Oak for the real small kids.
So what we normally do, and we do this in Bailey as well, we have 2 big fields.
Right.
And we put
break those
the
up.
smaller fields inside of the big fields.
Sure. How many big fields are at Red Oak?
It's one open space, but it was planned and developed for 2 big fields.
Okay.
But they're not separate like the ones at Miracle Park.
Right, okay. Gotcha. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I will add that soccer was not a part of Phase 1, but we went ahead and leveled the area and put a limited number of fields there because we could.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't part of the phase, but when I go out there, it looks like you got soccer fields.
Yes, sir.
Just happened in the grading process, didn't it?
Yep. All righty.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are you ready for us to break for lunch?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's about 12:20. If it's okay, we'll be back in here at 1 o'clock to start. That okay with everybody?
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll stand recess for lunch. Same rules we had yesterday?
Yes, sir.